Hey guys, what's going on? Xbox Online channel, host Sega Forever. Man, this morning when I got up, I wasn't thinking, dude. I mean, I had a kind of a busy weekend. Shout out to Hebot and Dea for joining me on the Wrecking Crew podcast. It's great to have them on there. Talked about a lot of stuff. I think we got some good topics out there. When it comes to Xbox, Microsoft, the gaming industry, one of the things I love is that we have a community of people that we can talk about a lot of different topics, have a lot of different perspectives, man. Sometimes we all don't agree, which I'm fine with, man. That's why I do these podcasts so people can get their voice out there. But I do appreciate Hebot and Dea being with me, especially Dea because, of course, I always love to have my brother Hebot on board. But I know he was busy checking out some houses. Man, go check out the video. There's this house that he was looking at because he's looking for a bigger, nicer crib to occupy. And so he was giving us like a kind of like a brief tour of the home he was checking out. And congratulations to his daughter. She's a licensed realtor, man. So I'm really happy for him and his family. It's always good, man, when your family can do stuff together and can pull together, man. Especially in these times. But if you guys know, there's stuff that I put on my social media that is specifically geared towards houses, architecture, stuff like that. Dude, I love all of that stuff. So it's kind of cool on the channel for Hiba to be giving us a tour of a house, kind of like a big open house thing, which I enjoyed. But thanks, my brother, for being there. But especially for Dea, because Dea rocked out with me for the rest of the showcase, man. We talked about a lot of cool stuff, and it was just nice having them there, man. I know we all been busy. A lot of us have been busy trying to get our games played. If you guys ain't keeping up with what's going on Xbox, just really quickly, I'll go over this because it's actually a Sega podcast. But if you guys don't realize what's going on over there, guys, there's a lot of stuff um, happening on the Xbox side. And I'm not just talking about the negative stuff that a lot of people like to talk about when it comes to Xbox, a lot of media coverage, a lot of the haters, a lot of the influencers out there. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes and a lot of stuff that if you're in the ecosystem, that you can participate in, man, and that I think you'll enjoy, especially if you're a gamer like myself. Um, but anyway, man, thank you for those guys. Shout out to Sega Man. He had a podcast yesterday. I didn't know he had one, but I was glad to catch up with it today. He had both him and Unlimited, as well as Heba was on that podcast as well. Talked about a lot of cool stuff. Went over a lot of interesting topics. One thing that Unlimited talked about is he's talking about how hard it is to get games day one when you go to a lot of the stores that's supposed to be selling these games. I talked about that on this channel briefly, especially when I was talking about trying to pick up the latest Yakuza. I wanted to kind of go in, pick up my game, and carry on. Well, that didn't happen, and it took me 3 to 4 weeks before I could secure my copy. I wanted it new, unopened. I didn't want to use one, dude. Pay the full price. I have no problem with that. If it's a game that I like, if it's a game that I want to keep physically, I'll definitely pay the money for it. Okay. But yeah, definitely go check out Sega Man's podcast. Shout out to my brother. I am going to send out some invites, but it is a Monday. I understand everybody's busy. I hadn't planned on doing this because when I woke up this morning, man, I didn't, like I said, it was a crazy weekend for me. Had some stuff going on, dealing with my health and all this stuff. Right? And I just slipped my mind that it was 9/9, September 9th today, even though it's 2024. And as soon as I opened up my social media, the first thing I see, I wish I could shout this dude name, shout this guy out because he's the first post I saw was basically happy birthday Dreamcast, happy 25-year birthday, 9999, right? And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. And it's the 25th anniversary, right? Because it's been that long. And for the 9999 thing, man, guys, if you know, you just know. It's just the 9th of September, 1999. All the stars aligned for the Dreamcast when it launched, way back in the day, right? And I was there, ground floor day one, like everybody else, man, being a huge Sega fan, who pre-ordered their consoles when it was a thing back then. You would pre-order your console and whatever games you wanted. I did it through GameStop. I just moved back to Hawaii, right? Went to the local mall over there, and I didn't know how Hawaii was because I grew up in the mainland mostly. But being back in Hawaii, just pop culture is just a little different, especially back then. Got out of the Navy, came back home, be with my family, start a new life and stuff like that here in the islands. And yeah, back then, man, pop culture was different here in the islands, man. I was probably one of the most hardcore nerds you ever come across, and that's not technically. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't people like that here in Hawaii, but that's just not the deal here, dude. I mean, especially like that was definitely the black sheep of my family, dude. Nobody in my family aside from myself. Like not my nephews. And then with my own kids, right, they play games, they read comics, they go to movies, stuff like that. But when I came back here, dude, it's either you surf, you do a lot of family events, do a lot of outdoor stuff. You go to movies every once in a while, but that's not a thing. In fact, one of my friends, when I was here, he's in the military, and so we went to watch episode one for Star Wars, and he was sad, man, because there was not a long line. Like they had it grouped up. There was people there. There was a lot of people that were there at the theater, but given this was episode one, and we haven't had a new Star Wars movie in a year, and all the hype and everything, the build up for it. Um, he was a little sad, man, because he went there to stand in line early, like for hours. He went there early, man, because he knows how crazy it'd be in the mainland. But when he came here, dude, he was like right there in the front. And by the time me and my other friend came, because I had other stuff to do, but we were gonna catch the movie, so he was nice enough to grab us tickets. We showed up there, man. The line wasn't even long, dude. Maybe about 20 people, right? Where there's hundreds of people in line in the mainland. Anyway, Hawaii is just a different breed, man, and it's definitely more of a Sony place, especially when I moved back, dude. I mean, that's why I love when the Microsoft store was open here. Wait, hold on, guys. Let me see. Hey, Tool, man, what's up, brother? Sorry, I'm trying to send. You know me, man. I'm just so unsat. I finished work, man. I had to run an errand this afternoon. Uh, dude, nothing against my local government and stuff like that, but the way they do stuff sometimes, man. Had I known some, like, I went there to get like a pass, and then they're telling me because it's a renewed pass or something like that that I have to like mail it in. I don't know, dude. It was a whole big thing. I didn't get mad about it, dude. I just chalked it up for hey, it is what it is. And then, I sat in traffic. I waited all this time, man, and I actually took off from work early today just to go over there and tell me that they don't have it after mail it in. So I mean, I did it the right way, right? I got everything filled out like you're supposed to. Did the thing the right way, but I didn't get the stuff in return. Anyway, it is what it is, right? I don't, I got to come home, and then the Costco is nearby. I should grab dinner for me and my daughter. So I don't have to worry about cooking, right? And I came here, man, and I'm like, dude, we got to talk about this because, like I said earlier today, when I opened up my social media, everybody was talking about Dreamcast, and dude, my gamer tag is Sega Forever, so all the circle of people I have, man, is gonna revolve around Sega and what's Sega doing. When Xbox is going or when Microsoft is gonna buy them, stuff like that. And yeah, I know some of you guys are gonna be like, "Oh, dude, he's probably gonna start saying the same old thing." Yeah, it's probably gonna happen in the podcast. I don't know if some of the guys will be able to join today. Tool man, hopefully they can. But thanks for being here in the chat, dude. Because I mean, it's crazy, dude, to think that 9999 was 25 years ago. That's how fast I've lost track. I mean, that's how fast time moves. I've lost track of time when it comes to the Dreamcast, and that's no diminishing Dreamcast at all, dude. Like I said, I was there day one when the console launched. I was in line at Progress Shopping Center, dude, and it was crazy to me because we went to midnight. For those of you guys who are younger and don't know about this kind of stuff, this is when these things was the same, right? It was cool, man. I miss those days, man, when we used to do this stuff, right? I mean, we were hardcore gamers, so you would show up when store. I forgot which console it was, but stores starting to do midnight launches and stuff like that to build the momentum and to get the sizzle going and all that kind of stuff, dude. And it was just something that was awesome for that time. I think it happens every once in a while now, but it's not the same, especially with digital, man. I mean, everything's going digital anyway. But back then, man, we were more of the physical generation. Like I like to say on my channel, man, it's the combination of analog and digital, right? I'm old enough to remember both, and we have our feet in both sides, both worlds, right? So for us, going to get hardware, going to get our games physically, right? Standing in line, having actual peripherals to buy. Dude, I think I spent, man, I gotta spend to nearly, I know it's over 300, 350, $350, almost $400. Yeah, I had to be about 350, 379. Because I bought the console and I bought a bunch of the games. My memory's kind of fading now. I mean, I know definitely the games I bought that I wanted to buy. Um, but like somebody shared like the launch lineup, dude, and I could have swore Sega Bass Fishing was one of those games, but I guess it was wrong. Though I bought the combo pack, dude. I had the rod and the game. I bought both. And then like with House of the Dick 2 was a big seller, man. It actually came with the guns. And then of course you guys remember the little VMUs, the memory cards. Right, those VMUs were cool, man. So I think I like had two controllers. But I don't think it came with two controllers. I had two controllers, like two VMUs, and then I think 10 out of the 13 games. If I want to say, I definitely know about Hydro Thunder, Ready to Rumble. Um, Power Stone, Blue Stinger, and NFL 2K, Soul Calibur, definitely. Tokyo Extreme Racing, man, that was one of my favorite games. What else was out there, dude? There was this shooter, man. Expendables, right? That was one of them. I should have listed all the games so I have memory, but I'm just doing it off the cuff, guys. But that's why I wanted to do this video to talk about it because all day today was just like a walk down memory lane for me, man. Just thinking about how great, um, I mean, just Sega in general, but that Dreamcast, dude, that was the Dreamcast was a first of its kind. It was an original, dude. There's been nothing like it since. In fact, I think that was the final. If I'm just being honest, man, because I have yet. I mean, I would say Xbox, but the Xbox One had a pretty was pretty close, man. I love the launch lineup for Xbox One. But if we're being honest, dude, if you look back at Sega and the Dreamcast, dude, there'd nobody done that, dude. And this is probably why I'm an Xbox guy because a lot of stuff I see that Xbox is doing, a lot of the situations that Xbox finds themselves in as a brand, I equate that to Sega and that Dreamcast era, right? Because things were kind of changing, man. The Sony was coming on board, changing the gaming landscape for various reasons. For me, I'll just be honest with you guys, a lot of it was negative. But I mean, they came in, they put their flag down, and then the console wars were officially on. And it was that Dreamcast. I'm not gonna lie, man. Some people call me naive. Some people look at me like I'm a fanboy or I just have too much, I have too much hopium and stuff like that. But to me, that was the console that was gonna turn it around for Sega. Now, granted, I didn't have a problem with the Saturn. I absolutely loved the Saturn. But also keep in mind, back then I owned all consoles. I would buy everything because at the end of the day, man, I wanted to play every game that I wanted to play. That's how hardcore of a gamer I was. Right, whatever game, and it didn't have to be the main titles on other consoles. It was just whatever game that was on a console that they had over there. It's not just about it being exclusive to that. That in fact, that stuff that happened, but that wasn't even a forethought in most gamers' mind. Right? It's just like you wanted that game, you want to play right away. That's how gamers. This is back in the day when I was gaming, man, being hardcore. You don't wait for the game, dude. You go out and get the console, and you just buy that game day one. That's how I rocked out video games, man. That's why I had so many games, so many consoles. I had multiple consoles, peripherals, everything. Because once a game came out that you wanted to play, whether it was AAA, AA, single A, didn't matter, dude. It was a game you're interested in, and you just went and played it. Right? That's how it was. Of course, being biased and stuff like that. I'm a Sega fanboy, dude. I was a Sega fan ever since, because I was Atari originally, and then Atari went away. I didn't even have a problem with Nintendo. Nintendo was cool, man. But when Sega hit, dude, with the Genesis, that was it. I didn't have a Master System like other people, man. Dude, I was poor, right? Just getting a Genesis, dude. The only reason I got my console, my Nintendo, was because I was on the honor roll, and I had been on the honor roll for years. I never missed an honor roll. My grandmother wanted to reward me, so she had my uncle buy it for me, and he was nice enough to buy it for me. Then when it comes to the Genesis was the first console I bought for myself. Started working, I was 15, man. Back in the day, man, you just have to save your money. And then you had friends, man. That's why most of your friends are Sega fans, right? Or Sega friends, because you guys used to share cartridges back in the day. You couldn't buy every single game. That's why I'm blown away by Game Pass and how people hate on Game Pass, because everything right now is at your fingerprints. At your fingerprint or fingertips, sorry, at a super low price, and you have access at a super low price. I understand, man. Look, dude, I'm old school, right? I'm putting my stuff on people of this generation that didn't grow up that way, man. But when you walk into a Toys R Us and cartridges are $80, and you're never gonna get one, like I said, the only cartridge my grandmother bought me was for Super Nintendo, and then that was Bayou Billy. That was it. And every other game I got to play, man, I used to borrow my friend's discs or switch out. Or then when video stores started renting discs, you could do it that way. But then by the time I got my own job, man, you could just buy your own stuff. And that's what I would just spend my time and money on, right? I'm a consummate nerd, dude. If I wasn't reading comic books, dude, or collecting baseball or mostly basketball cards at the time, renting movies or playing video games, dude, that was my world, right? That's what I revolved around. And it was a simple life, man, because I couldn't go and do extravagant stuff, dude. I had bills to pay, man. Even when I was younger, dude, I had to help out around the house. And my grandmother was getting older, dude. Had to pay rent, dude. Had to buy food. Had to do all that stuff. And I didn't care, man, because I struggled, man, when I was growing up. So, I come from that generation of like, you take that when you got a game, you appreciate it no matter what it is. That's why I have to be careful with gaming, man. That's the only reason I feel I was good at the arcades is because I couldn't afford not to be. Dude, you have to make if I got $5, dude, that was a magical moment. And I was stretched as $5 for weeks. and that's just the way it was. You know what I mean? So that's my introduction to Sega was the first Genesis, man, and it was just something that was just mind blowing. You gotta understand at that time, especially when you had Nintendo, and Nintendo was kind of like Nintendo was like the upper class. Like I don't know how to put it, dude. They were like the typical thing for the kid type of gaming system. I'm not saying they're bad games, dude. I like the games on Nintendo. Don't get me wrong. But when Genesis came in, dude, maybe it was my age. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was, dude. Maybe it was just at the timing of it all. But when Genesis stepped on the screen, everything it was just stepped on the scene, everything changed for me, man. And then I was Sega. I never looked back, dude. I was arcade. I was arcade rat. And then when I wasn't in the arcade, I was at home playing Sega Genesis. And at that time, I was making my own money. Went into the service, had my own money, and that's one of the things I would splurge on the most would be video games. Would be video games. Again, you can't buy every single thing, man. So I hear you guys now, especially now, man, with all the games that do. This is the time. There's never been these many games out there that are great, that are good quality, that you're gonna play, right? In this present time than there is now. That's why it's so hard, dude. You just can't own every game. Again, this is what something that Microsoft and Xbox realized, and that's why they came up with Game Pass, so that they gave access to everybody. Before Microsoft was doing this, dude, Sega was doing these same things, man. They were hitting outside the box. There's a punch. They were punching above their weight class. They were challenging the norms that it came to the gaming industry. So man, 55 just changed my profile pic. Hey, bro. Yeah, dude, man, Sega forever, bro. My gamer tag back in the day was Sega for life. Because I remember when the NWO and stuff like that was huge. For life. So that was my gamer tag, and I lost it. I don't know. I tried to log in one day, and then it was just I don't know. I don't know what the problem was. But I had to change my profile. That's why it's Sega Forever right now, which I like, dude. Actually, that worked out in the end, man. But man, people that know me from playing especially when I was on Xbox, dude, I used to get a lot of crap. When Xbox first launched, because I'd be, because Sega, I was a hardcore Sega fan, dude, and there was people that you'd be on the chats with, dude. I was like, oh, why are you here, dude? You should be playing your Genesis. And I was like, yeah, dude, but I want to play Mechasol, right? And then it was a tumultuous time, man, for Sega, dude. They had the Dreamcast, dude. Everything was looking up, everything was going right for the Dreamcast, dude. As far as the launch, the price point, the games, availability, marketing was on point, dude. They had some of the best marketing during that period, and that's another thing, dude, man. Sometimes when your back is against the wall and when things are so hard, and think everything's against you, man, that's when you perform at your best. And that's the saddest thing for me being a Sega fan, especially being a fan of the Dreamcast, man, because there's no way that console shouldn't have gone out the way that it did. Now, granted, there was stuff that Sega did, dude. I will acknowledge this, dude. I'm not gonna harp on it like other people do. There was some stuff that Sega went through right at that time, and even prior for that with the Saturn, dude, that kind of added to what Sega had to deal with as a company. Okay, I'll acknowledge that. But dude, if we're all being 100 here, man, not just being a Sega fan, just everybody being as a gamer, man, being 100, dude, that a lot of people just didn't go and buy the console, even though they liked it, dude. I experienced that myself, man. I had the console. Friends would come over, dude. They would play all the games, especially NFL 2K, man. These guys like sports games, but to them, dude, nothing could touch Madden football, right? And I remember playing one day, dude, and what I used to do in the barracks, man, because it didn't have air conditioning, you didn't need it because I like it. I like to be cold. So I just used to crack open my door and then open my window, man, because I was stationed on this place called Treasure Island. It's in the middle of the bay. It's no longer Treasure Island. It's something else now. But the barracks was there, and all I had to do is open my front door, like crack it open, and then open the windows in the back, and you just had this cool air rushing through, man, because you're in the middle of the bay, right? And so when I'd be playing my games, man, sometimes people would see pass by, dude. But every time when I first put on NFL 2K, dude, people would stop and then look because my TV was there and I was just playing, and they'd hear like football. And then I remember one dude, man, there's like, because this is a football game, right? And then he was like, he kind of peeked and he goes, oh, what's up, bro? He's like, the game on? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm playing my game. And then he's like looking at it, goes, dude, that's a video game? That's one of the things about NFL 2K, dude, that you hear people say that was there at that time when you bought that console, right? And that's where people would talk about it, right? And so I don't know, dude. I don't know why it was like that. I don't know why that it went away. I don't know why a lot of the things happened the way that it did. right? It's just that's the way it was, right? And it shouldn't have been that way. It should have been that console should have we should have been at least had a Dreamcast 2, Dreamcast 3. Now the funny thing is people say that the Xbox is Dreamcast 2, right? Which in a lot of ways it is. It's probably one of the reasons why I transitioned over um, to the Xbox, because there's a lot of stuff that Microsoft does that reminds me a lot of Sega. They don't do it verbatim, man. Look, it's not a one for one, dude, but it's similar. And that's all I need, man, because like I said, dude, the Dreamcast left way before its time. Right? And those were good times, dude. Those were good times. And I really miss those times, dude. But look, Ready to Rumble. I forgot about Ready to Rumble. What else, dude, man? I know there's a couple other games. I should have made a list. Man, but they just had so much great stuff, dude. But of course, one of the main things though that they brought to the table was Soul Calibur. That was the first game that you had that was actually arcade perfect. In fact, it was better than the arcade, and you actually had it in your room. And that was something for a person like me who played the arcade games and stuff like that, dude. That was a person like me that remembers it so vividly because it was a first, right? You never had that, dude. The only way you could get that kind of quality is you have to play the arcade. You have to drop your quarters in there, right, to get that arcade quality. Right? And Sega with the Dreamcast was the first one to actually put it into play with that game. Right. Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can get the dudes in here. Hold on 1 second, dude. I don't want to. I don't want these guys to feel like I'm leaving out because I don't want to, man. But I know. Look, I know everybody's busy, man, and it's not gonna be long because it is a Monday. Dude, I had a crazy. I was so busy at work today. It went super fast. Like I felt like I just showed up to work and it was done, and I had to leave. Granted, I had to leave early, but I didn't leave like half day, dude. I left like about an hour and a half earlier. But I had so much stuff to do, man, that you couldn't even. It was like I feel sometimes you know how you go to sleep and you blink, and then you wake up, and then it's like time to go to work. That's what it felt like. Dude, who are these people on my feed, man? I have no idea who these people are. Hold on, let me send this to the guys, man. Sorry, you know how we do it here, dude. I'm all over the place. Hold on. Dude, this thing is not working. I don't know why this isn't going. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I gotta send my voice. I sent one to Hebot, because I know Hebot can talk on this as well as Sega Man. Just send Sega Man a link. Say Prime, man. I'll send one to Prime. Shout out to NWO Prime. Prime, I haven't watched your video yet on. I know you did a boxing of the Dinobots, man. Great to have you back on social media, man, especially on YouTube. I know you're busy, man. Once again, I'm sorry for your loss, but we're here for you, man. And if you want to jump in, I just sent you a link. Anybody who wants to jump in can. Should I even send one today? I know she probably won't be able to do one. Day is busy, man. She doing adult stuff. I know she working on her house and she got all that stuff going on. I don't like with Hebot, man. I know he's busy. Don't want to force him to come in, man. But if they can jump in, dude, I definitely would love for them to show face, man. And they get their experiences and their stories too, man. But just really quickly, man. As I open my social media, dude, I do have to say something. Um, if you guys didn't know, man, James Earl Jones passed away today. If you don't know who James Earl Jones is, man, he's probably one of the greatest actors of our time. Um, I don't know how old he was, man. I know he's got to be up there in his 80s. But most of you guys will know James Earl Jones is the voice of Darth Vader. My exposure to James Earl Jones was kind of funny because I was young. I was a little kid, so of course I didn't watch a lot of movies. But the movies that I did watch, um, two movies in particular, where I knew who he was both Conan the Barbarian, and I got to watch that because my cousins had a videotape of it. That's how I ended up watching that show. And James no, yeah, was it Conan the Barbarian? Yeah, Conan the Barbarian, not the Destroyer. No, the Barbarian. because the Destroyer was the one with Will Chamberlain. Wait, let me think. Was it the first one? It was, right? It was Conan the Barbarian. Chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Two Man, am I wrong? He was 93. Oh, thanks, Two Man. Two Man, he was in Conan the Barbarian, right? I'm old now, bro. I getting this stuff mixed up, dude. I should have taken. You know what I'm still doing? I hate to say this, man. I'm gonna have to start taking notes. Something that I didn't have to do when I was younger, but obviously I'm having an issue with all this kind of stuff. Hold on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah, it was the Barbarian. Okay, thanks, Tony. So Conan the Barbarian, and of course the voice of Darth Vader, which of course you didn't know until later on, right? Like from Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back, because it was such a distinctive voice. And back then, dude, if you have to be around real fans to get that type of uh, info, right? We didn't have the internet and stuff like that, dude. It's just people that was constantly talking about Star Wars that loved it, that did all the digging, kind of like how we did back in the day when I especially when I know when it came to comic books and video games, right? To get the latest news, man. Because we didn't have the stuff like people have today. All that information wasn't out there. It was a simpler time, most definitely, brother. But and then later on, dude, as you got to know him as an actor, a lot of you guys will probably remember. You know, it's kind of funny because a lot of the roles that he played, um, like for me personally, because every year used to watch Jesus of Nazareth, so he would play one of the wise men, and so you'd see him every year. But still, I didn't make the correlation again because I was young, and it wasn't until I got into my teens, right, that you start doing those deep dives. Actually, became a kind of a movie file, and at that point in time, as Star Wars fans, it is pretty. His voice was pretty um, distinctive, of course, but you know he was just well known in the community, and then of course dipping into the watching movies and following actors and actresses and stuff like that. That part of pop culture. And then a lot of people will recall him more for the roles that he did in shows that he wasn't the lead, right? But mostly the shows that he would do. But like uh, I remember he was in Coming to America, right? Of course, the voice of Mufasa. What's that? Dude, he was even in that Robert Town. Was it Robert Town? No, what was that? Meteor Man. He played a big role in Meteor Man. He was in Clear and Present Danger and the Tom Clancy films. Dude, so my point is that a lot of people will recognize him from his body of work, and more so um, around his body of work that added to movies as opposed to him starring. So I do recommend you go back and watch some of his older stuff, especially his stuff from the '70s. He's a really great actor, dude. Really was. We lost a national treasure today. That's how I'm just gonna put it. Because there's very few people that can hold that type of star power, right? And it's not, and that's the kind of the thing. I don't mean this as a, this is not a slight on him, definitely, but it's unfortunate that just most people know him from his voice work, which is amazing, right? It's astounding, and people have built careers off of that. Don't get me wrong. The voice of Optimus Prime with Peter Cullen, all that kind of stuff, right? Oh, Field of Dreams too, man. Thank you. I'm drawing a blank, dude. I was reading this earlier. But again, I'm gonna start taking notes so I can remember to say this thing. But thank you. Yeah, Field of Dreams was awesome. Man, he was just. I'm gonna kick myself once I get the podcast. All these movies are gonna start coming to my mind. But definitely go watch some of the was it The Great White Hope? That's a great movie, man. Oh man, he did that movie. Was it Cindy Portier? I can't remember right now. It's in. I can see the movie poster right now. Anyway, just I just wanted to take the time to say, look, dude, shout out to condolences to his family. James Earl Jones, man, he will be missed. Yes, he had the most iconic line that will ever be in cinematic history with Star Wars. If you haven't known, if you guys don't, I'm gonna spoil it, man. If you guys don't know, I'm sorry for you. You should have watched Star Wars already. But when he tells Luke Skywalker that he's the dad, I remember watching that for the first time. I mean, that came out of nowhere. Maybe we're a little bit more naive back then. But you didn't make the connection till it actually happened. That's one of the great things I love about growing up watching movies. Maybe because I was younger again, like I said, more naive. But when you had those kind of experiences in movies, that meant everything. And that's one of the most iconic lines. One of the most iconic turns in cinema in the history of cinema. That'll stand the test of time. So it's basically it makes him almost immortal, right? Because it's his voice as Darth Vader that gives that classic line. And that's just a great scene, dude. That scene will live in infamy. So yeah, Sandlot too, man. That was awesome. That was awesome as well. All right, guys. So I sent out the links to everybody. We'll see if anybody pops in. But again, like I said, I'm gonna keep it short. I was just watching. Just like I said, I was just going down memory lane. With nostalgia again. Of course, I'm old, man, and I'm forgetting stuff. So if I misspeak on some stuff, I'm sorry. It is what it is, man. Like I said, this isn't planned, dude. I just got home. I just wanted to do this, knock it out, because it is a Monday night. And give Sega his props, man. Wish the Dreamcast a happy birthday. Watched a lot of stuff today that people were sharing on social media, mostly X, with interviews. Some people showing their collections. Some people giving their experience of how it was when they went on 99.99. And again, the Dreamcast it was 99.99, and the Dreamcast was 199.99. I don't think there's ever been a console that launched that cheaply. I've never been. Right? This is why. I mean, look, I'll bring it back to Xbox just really quickly. This is why when people always tell me that Xbox is gonna die, that Xbox is dead, Microsoft's gonna sell all this stuff's gonna happen, right? I don't believe them, right? Because I saw what happened with Sega and what Sega went through. They had the best console, the most powerful console at the time, the cheapest console at 199.99, the biggest launch lineup of games with some of the best games ever that I live. Like there's people right now talking about some of these games as just the greatest games ever, and I will agree. Um, the price point they launched at, that the marketing was on a whole nother level. That's one of the things I loved about the Dreamcast, dude. They did it. They updated the marketing stuff like that, but they went back to why everybody loved Sega, and got involved with Sega for the jump, man. You know, with the taglines and all that kind of stuff. And they were all in, man. They put all their chips in. They learned from the Saturn. Again, I didn't have a problem with the Saturn personally. It is what it is. At the time, the type of games I was playing were fighters, were side scrollers, action platformers, a lot of platformers, action, adventure games, sports games, nonstop, and fighting games. Fighting games I would play on the console and I played in the arcade. Sports games because I was a huge Steeler fan, and I played sports and I watched sports all the time. I was really hardcore back then, so naturally those are the games that really. My taste in gaming has changed as I gotten older. Not that I don't like the older stuff, man. It's just the way it is, man. You know, like I said on the video on Saturday, man, Capcom is going to bring their two fighting collections over to Xbox, which I feel that's awesome. But then Power Stone 1 and 2 is going to be in the collection on the second disc. Again, I don't think we're getting this to next year, but I can wait, dude. I've been waiting this long, right? But it was nice, man. There were some great stories being told too, man. How people had waited in line, dude. Like I said, I waited in line as well. It was crazy, man, because for a place where I lived, it was nuts for them to do that, right? And on top of all that, dude, it was funny because back then it was still pretty much guys that just played games. Look, dude, I'm not saying girls didn't play games, man, so don't bite my head off, dude. But for some of you people that are thinking it was a one for one with guys and girls playing video games, that we all play video games, dude, no, we did not. Right? It was a male dominated hobby for various reasons. It continued to be a male dominated hobby. I didn't see the change to Xbox. Could have been a little bit before that. I know people play Dreamcast, but I'm just being straight up honest, man. I grew up in those times, dude. It wasn't like that, right? So when I stood in line for the Dreamcast, it was kind of funny, right? Because when I was standing in line for the Dreamcast to get it, dude, there was a line and it was just guys. There was no girls in that line, dude. It was just guys. And the way the mall is where I live, dude, that thing wrapped around. Like it went all the way down from the GameStop. This is on the second level, so it went all the way down to one side where the GameStop was, and it wrapped around all the way to the other side. And that's a long line, guys. That's a long line. And I think one of the reasons why it was like that is because that was a phenomenon, dude. That stuff just didn't happen when I was living here, when I first got back here living here, right? And the funny part is where we were, since we're in the beginning of the line, there's this little area where you could sit, and in that area, man, was all these girls, and so their boyfriends were the ones waiting in line, and all these girls were there, and they looked pissed, dude. I remember their faces, dude. Their faces, they were not happy to be there, and they were all dressed up nice too, and the guys were too. So this probably means they're gonna hit the clubs that night, but they stopped to pick up their Dreamcast. And I was laughing, dude, because dude, if looks could kill, man. They were staring at us like, again, man. Look, I grew up in a different time when I was younger, dude. It didn't bother me, right? Because they're looking at us like, what a bunch of nerds, and I was like, I don't care. I lived my whole life like that, dude. I owned it by that time. I don't care, dude. I used to call myself a Sega otaku. Where in Hawaii, man, otaku, because we have such a close relationship with Japan. So otaku in Japan is not a good thing, right? So I would have that. Like I would call myself that. My friend's Japanese. He would laugh. Um, he laughed about it, stuff like that. And I remember a couple of his friends came to Japan, and he said, "Oh, he's a otaku," and they were like, "Whoa!" Like they looked at me all weird. So I definitely had like a different feel back then, dude. But I'm just being honest. That's just the way it was. Toolman says they've been saying Xbox is going to die since the OG Xbox on 2001. They either are uninformed, never had one, or just clowns. Yeah, dude. Toolman, 100%. I think Unlimited was talking about that earlier or the other day on Sega Man's podcast, dude. How he just unplugged, dude, because that's the best thing you can do, honestly. Toolman, you just unplug and you just enjoy gaming for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I knew that for a long time, dude. I mean, that's what turned me into an Xbox guy was the 2013 launch. When I went to GameStop to buy an Xbox and they said they didn't have any to reserve, and the guy actually sent me to the Microsoft store. Again, I told this story before. I just tell it really quickly. That's how I found out about a Microsoft store in Hawaii. It was at the mall the mall right down the road from me. The other mall I'm talking about is more towards the leeward side of the island. It's more west side. So So I went. That's how I found out Microsoft had a store, dude. And I went and pre-ordered my stuff there, and it was cool, man, because I didn't know how Microsoft did it back then. They had a launch event, midnight thing too, but they had food, they had DJ, they gave away stuff, dude. I got a bunch of swag. There's people that just stood in line just to get the swag and eat. They weren't there for the Xbox, which, it is what it is, man. I can't hate on them for that, but yeah, I had a good time. It was fun, dude. I got all my games that I pre-ordered, man. I think the first game I went home and played was Killer Instinct. Because that's one of the games that sold me on it, dude. It was awesome. Good times, dude. Yeah, dude. I tune all these dudes out, man. And like I say all the time, too, man. The great thing about Xbox, they might have some similarities with Sega, except for the money. That's something that they have in spades that Sega didn't, and ultimately why Sega went away and went third party, which everybody was begging for. So you guys don't remember this kind of stuff. I do. This is why I hate Tony so much, and this is why I hate Sony. Right? And because a lot of the people back then were saying, "Oh, they should just go third party. It'd be better for them." That's why I tell Nintendo guys don't go third party, don't listen to, especially because that's what the Sony guys always say, right? Right? And like even now, dude, they're all saying Microsoft should go third party. Microsoft is third party. Microsoft sucks. Microsoft has no games. You pull that on Sega. Sega was in a bad way back in the day. You can't do that to Microsoft. That ain't gonna happen this time. In fact, they'll all last your console, and the day that you guys console die, I'm gonna be happy. Sorry, I'm not gonna console war here. I try to keep it positive because it was a very positive day. Like I said, it was awesome. Yeah, so yeah, to man, 100%, man. I don't listen to anything you say. Oh, Daniel, man, what's up, brother? What's up, man? Welcome to the podcast, dude. They left our girl off that, man. I heard they left our girl off the MVP list, bro. How could they do that? I'm not saying she has to win, bro, but she should have been on that list. Caitlyn should have been on that list, dude. Because she's in the conversation, dude. She should be in the running, especially after that break, man. I know, look, dude, I ain't saying she's better than Aja, at least right now. And I give Aja Wilson her flowers, man. Or Asia, sorry. Because I always call the song, she's named after the song from Steely Dan. And when I was growing up, I always called it Aja, not Asia. But I believe it's pronounced Asia, my mistake. So, and look, dude, much props to her, dude. She's an all around player. There's a reason why she's a champion. There's a reason why she's the MVP. But you can't tell me that Caitlyn cannot be in that conversation. Because there's some stuff, yeah, sure, Caitlyn's not there yet. She's going to get there, though. Might get there. Dude, if she gets there by the end of this year, though, you know, all this stuff's going to blow up in the WNBA's face. They got to get ahead of this stuff, dude. They got to put her out there, man. There is nobody doing as much for the WNBA right now than Caitlyn Clark. Like I said, she's not fully there where Asia is, dude, but she has so many much more intangibles that a lot of people want to discount, but you can't, dude. Because you wouldn't do it for Jordan back in the day. You wouldn't have done it for Dr. J back in the day. You wouldn't have done it for Moses Malone when he hit the league. You wouldn't have done that against Larry and Magic, right? It's just the changing of the guard and the sign of the times, man. And they should embrace that, dude. I don't know what their problem is, the league's problem is. They've gotten better. Don't get me wrong, man. I give them the props, right? But they need to change really quick. Right? This opportunity is missing them behind you. Charles Barkley had an interview that I watched a clip of it there, and he was talking about how the WNBA has messed this up in so many ways. He used more colorful language than I'll use on the podcast, but he's 100% right. Everything that they've done with Caitlyn, with the exception of the break, they've just not done right. And even though they loaded her schedule in the beginning, I actually even understand that, right? Because she's a hot commodity. You want to get her as many eyes as possible because you want the league to grow. But if you're doing that with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, dude, that should then you shouldn't don't be a hypocrite, man. Follow through. I'm not saying she has to be nominated as the MVP. Right now, as it stands, she's in the conversation and she should be on that list. Just my 2 cents, Dan. That kind of irritated me. I was actually going to do a video about that. But like I said, dude, we keep it copacetic, dude. Because right now, dude, I'm on cloud nine. Enjoyed watch, just enjoyed reading some of the stories that people were sharing. Man, there's this one dude that printed the original magazine for the Dreamcast when it launched, and it's really cool because there's this shot on the back cover that has the eye. They had this viral eye advertisement, man. That was awesome, dude. Again, this is pre-internet, dude. This is pre all the stuff that all the advantages that companies have now that for some reason they end up messing up. Yes, I'm talking about you, Disney. Right? They just can't get a grip on it, right? They mess it up. They keep on messing it up. And back then, dude, I guess maybe because you have to be more creative because it was harder back in the day, dude. But nothing can touch that. Oh man, my brother's. Hey, what's up, brother? Eva, you there? He about in the. He's here, but we'll see. We'll see if he. I see
Oh,
his mic.
brother,
Are you there? Can you? I can't hear you.
can you hear me, brother?
Brother, I see you talking, but I don't hear any volume. Your mic is
Can you
unmuted, though. I see
hear
your
me
mic's
now?
muted.
Can you hear
Sorry.
me now?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
Oh, there we go. Dude, it's my volume, bro.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Guys, can you
What's
hear
up,
me?
bro?
Can you
Hey,
guys
yeah,
hear?
I can hear you perfect. Yeah.
All right, man. Oh, awesome. Hey, what's
What's up,
up,
brother?
Pepe? Welcome, brother. Pepe in the house.
How are you, Bubble?
Good, brother. Good, man. Good podcast yesterday, dude. I listened to you and Unlimited Sega, man. When I was at work today, man, typing in. Dude, I had to do a bunch of training entries. So I was just listening to you guys talk on Sega Man's podcast. But
That's,
yeah, dude, I mean, I just, I should have known, but it just didn't dawn on me that today was the 25th anniversary for Dreamcast.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. 25th anniversary. I mean, it's a bittersweet for me because
Yeah,
today's my mom's birthday and she passed
for real.
away.
Oh, my
You
bad, bro.
so it's kind of like, yeah, she passed away the same year that 360 came out. That's why you heard me say the story that and the 360 came out, I couldn't really embrace it because I was still going through that mental adjustment, you
Right,
know,
right.
emotional adjustment, and just learning how to live life without her anymore. Right? Even though I had my family, I was a full man already. I was already 29, but
Right.
I've had her all my life. She was my mom, my dad, because you know, I she pretty much raised me by herself. And when
Yeah,
I did have my stepdad, it wasn't for a very long time, because he died when I was 13, right? So,
right, right.
so she was everything. My best friend, my mom, anything I ever needed, she was there. She helped. Needed money for milk for the kids. She was always there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, your mom and your dad, when you're fortunate to have both, right? They're the most prized possession you have, but you don't realize that until you're much older and you've done a lot of stupid things and you've made them go through hell and back. And then you realize, fuck, I was really foolish. But that's part of growing up at the same time.
yeah, yeah. I
So,
understand.
but it was never really bad with my mother. But I know I gave her a lot of, nervous times because when I was a teenager, I was staying out late, and she didn't really want me out late because I don't live in an area where it's safe all the time. She would get worried and concerned because it was just me and her. So until I didn't get home, a lot of times she would not even go to sleep. And me being the teenager at the time doing stuff, I didn't take that into consideration. I thought, oh no, she'll be okay. I'll be okay. I just call her and stuff. And then sometimes if I went out, she said, oh, just call me, let me know you're okay. And I wouldn't, right? Because I forget. Back then, remember, we didn't really have cell phones. We had pagers. So she'd page me, and then I would call her from a cell phone or from somebody's house. So, that's what made it a little bit harder. But kids don't know about that today. They don't know what the fuck a pager is. So, um, so it's just one of those things that we all go through. But like once we go through it, we realize how much they meant to us and how hard it is to adjust and adapt living with having their voice of reason, their voice of knowledge, their voice of support, right? Because they're your parents. And like I said, if you're lucky enough to have both your parents and that they're good parents, you know, that's a blessing that you never forget, that
Mhm.
you never take for granted. You know what I'm saying, brother?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah, definitely.
know, so for me, it was a bittersweet. So today's kind of it's a celebration and a bittersweet at the same time. But it's already been way over 20 years, but it just feels like it was yesterday. 'Cause I found her when she was already dying in the bathroom when it happened, right? She
Right.
died of an aneurysm. And I tried to give her CPR to revive her and give her some breath. And they worked on her for a while when they got there, the ATM. The medic shit.
ENT.
And then they took her, and then I went with her, and I spent like almost probably about a week in the hospital until we got all the results and stuff. Because basically, she became a vegetable. Her brain was completely dead because the blood that grew out and blew out from the vein in the brain, it crushed her brain. So there was no brain waves, you know.
Right, right.
But I never forget. But I do have a lot of good and happy memories of when I went and got my Dreamcast. Wow. I started working. My wife started living with me and my mom at the time. We were still in the happy place. And I started working at because I was going to school at college. Started working at the cab company, and I was making like some serious bread. You know what I mean?
Right,
At the
right, right.
time, there were days I was making anywhere from 5 to 7 or even $800 a day just driving cab, right? Which is retarded. It's crazy because that kind of money is nuts. But at the same time, you don't have medical.
Hey, Hiba, I lost you.
Everything comes out of your pocket. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
Well, that kind of cancels itself out. If you make that type of money, you're in charge of all your needs. Like medical, you got to pay out of your pocket. You know what I'm saying? If you miss the day, go down. If you miss a day, guess what? Yeah, you're not getting paid for that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was making good money. I was able to pay off all my credit cards from that time to get out of debt. And every week I was just saving $50, $20, because I knew that in September that the Dreamcast would come out, and I wanted to get every launch game. I wanted to get certain peripherals like the fishing rod that I knew because I wanted to play the fishing game with it.
Hmm.
A couple of memory cards, the VMUs, remember?
Yeah.
And so,
VMU.
yeah, yeah. So I went into a place called Planet X. That was a video game store in the mall in Garden State Plaza here in New Jersey. And my boy Ralph was the manager. He was always really cool with me, always took care of me. And the cool thing was that they did like a whole Dreamcast party because they had TVs just like Funkoland, where people would sit there and play the game before they even buy it. They could
Right, right.
try it out and see if it worked. Remember, like back in the day, you were actually able to try the games out in the store. You were able to do that in GameStop. I mean, not GameStop, in Planet X, Funkoland, and I believe the video store. What was it? The name of that video store, not Blockbuster, but the other Hollywood Video had like another video game thing inside,
Mm.
and you would be able to try them out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so there was a big batch. Mad people were there celebrating X Sega, celebrating the console, and there was also the haters at there like, oh, what the fuck you getting a Dreamcast? Fuck that PlayStation 2 coming out, it's gonna be way more powerful. I was like, dude, you miss out. Gamers play games. Don't give a fuck about no PlayStation. This is Sega. And then with all the titles that were dropping, there was like it was a total of like either 17 or 18 launch games. I remember. And then
There was a
after
lot.
huh?
Well, yeah, there was a bunch too. I know I bought
There
at
was a
least.
bunch. Yeah,
I
like
know at least
Tricky
my friends.
Styles.
Yeah, I
You
bought
know,
like
House of the
9 or
Dead
10 of
2. Yeah, House of the Dead 2, Tricky Styles, Echo the Dolphin. They were all launch games. And then in that same month, they had like sort of Berserk. They all came out within that
Oh,
window of the
that's
first month. Yeah, yeah. Out of that, they all came out within that window of that first month. And I remember that clear as day. And so all together it was like 25 new games with a brand new console, you know, and the console was 199. I bought every strategy guide that I wanted for like Echo the Dolphin because it was like really big, kind of open world in the different, you know, boards and the levels. It was really big, so you could find all stuff.
right,
All I
right.
know is that I remember it vividly. My wife went with me. My son Darius at the time went. He was a baby. He was playing people, beating them in fighting games that they were playing, and they were like mind boggled because he was so little, beating them in the game because I would teach him how to play. And he knew how to play since very little, and it was fun times, man. I saved $1,000. I went in there. They're like, "What you want?" I said, "Everything." What do you mean everything? Everything. Give me everything. All the games, the console, every peripheral, the VMUs, Rumble packs, everything. So my friend Ralph was like really bugging out, cheering, like, "This guy's insane! This guy." So it was pretty funny. It was fun, man. It was fun. Came home, installed it in the living room. Man, I think I played for like days until like 5 in the morning. And even didn't go to work for a couple of days because I already had a lot of money saved up. You know what I mean? At the time, because it was much easier. You know, it was just I just had 2 kids at the time, not so many like now. You know, as time went on, it was me and my wife, and my mother was helping us because we were staying there with her. So it helped out for me to be able to save. And all I was really paying was my car, the insurance, you know, the car payment. So it wasn't that hard, right? Or I was helping my mother, you know, paying rent. You know, I would give her like $800 a month to pay rent for food, whatever. All I know is this, it was a great, great memory of like complete nostalgia because of all the IPs that were coming back. The first time seeing Echo the Dolphin from a 2D transition to an actual 3D transition, which I thought was incredible because the game was amazing, how it looked, the graphics, and then the fact that Soul Calibur was blew my fucking mind because I remember when I went to the arcade in that same mall just to double check and then played the Dreamcast. Like, yo, the arcade version looks inferior to the home console version. I was like, yo, this shit is like it's really happening. We're really there. Where, you know, the home consoles are better graphically than the arcades. Because remember, the arcades for us was always the benchmark. Remember, it was always the benchmark of graphic fidelity, you know, the creativity of the ideas of what games were coming out. And if you saw a game in the arcade like Golden Axe or like Double Dragon, right? Or Forgotten Worlds or Wrestle War or RoboCop, Crime Fighters, and you saw how gorgeous they look, you were like, yo, I just can't wait until the Xbox, you know, the Xbox, sorry, until the dream, you know, the home consoles have this type of graphic fidelity at home. It's going to be incredible because we're going to reach that someday. And that was the mindset. Remember, that was the mindset back then. So, you know, when I saw that Soul Calibur, my God. And my son loved playing with, what's the dude with the 2 nunchucks in the game?
Yeah, the Elvis looking dude. Yeah,
Max, Maxi.
it's a
He
maximum.
loved playing that fucking character, bro. And then how gorgeous and sleek the console looked. It was so small. And then it had the modem connected in, then the 4 ports in the front. The fact that you were able to play with the sports games like the 2K and the football with the reading all of the plays right on the VMU. So you could actually play couch co-op in your living room and not have to worry about like all the times back in the day that motherfuckers would look at your plays because you see it on the TV screen when you pick it, when everybody, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was just a great step. And I think it was probably until 360, it was probably one of the last real time when the console felt like it was doing a big, gigantic leap forward. You know what I mean? As far as innovation, creativity, features, games, graphic fidelity, you know, the game variety. You know, because Dreamcast obviously was a massive success. But then when Sony saw that, because their fucking ass were still very wealthy at the time, they got fucking pissed because they got scared. They knew that Dreamcast was the real deal. Started fear mongering all these companies. Oh, why are you going to make a game for Dreamcast? Make it on our next generation console. It's going to be way more powerful, right? With the PS2. And so a lot of developers started backing off and took were taking the money ahead of time so that they can put it on PlayStation, right? And then later you saw when PlayStation 2 released, right, that the games on Dreamcast still look better than PlayStation, like the Ferrari F-150, like the Dead or Alive, 2 and 3, right? Soul Calibur, all those games that came to PlayStation 2 after the fact, like Code Veronica, the Dreamcast versions were still better versions and superior versions. I remember F-150, Ferrari F-150, it was 30 frames, and on the Dreamcast it was 60. And it had better detail and soft edges, better polygons than actually being than the way they did on PS2, right? And that shit, it was just fun. And then you saw all the haters that were mad, still buying PlayStation 1 stuff. Oh, I'm waiting. I don't know why y'all wasting your money. Like, wasting your money? What are you, crazy? This is Sega. They're the pioneers. So, you were having a little bit of console warring and back and forth, even while you were celebrating, but it was fun because they knew at the time that the Dreamcast was shitting all over the PlayStation 1. See what I'm saying?
That's what I was saying earlier, dude. That's where it kind of changed with the console wars because you had to deal with people that weren't gamers. That was the very first time.
Oh, yeah. That was the very, very first really bad beginning when you actually realize, oh, wait, you know what? These motherfuckers are not real gamers. They're just casuals and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They really think that Sony is the pioneer of this shit when they're not. That's when you start to see it. Mm-hmm.
They never were. Dude. In fact, this 25 years is kind of significant in the sense that it's been 25 years of putting up with these people.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for real. I mean, it kind of started with the Sega Saturn era because they fucked Sega Saturn up big time because they came out earlier without no notifications to try to beat them out. The Sega didn't have Sega did not have the ability financially at the time to bring out the Saturn at the same price of $299. And that's why that meme, which now we call them memes, or that video at the time, became so prevalent where they go $299. And the guy that announced it on PlayStation's keynote, he was working for Sega. And he had left Sega to go work for Sony because they offered him more money. And that was actually a dirt move that they did on purpose. They hired him to take away what he did for Sega because he was the guy that would do like the searching and scouting for a lot of the Sega titles and new developers to come in that had talent. And they hired him on purpose. And then he goes on stage and does that right shortly after they announced that the Sega Saturn was coming out that day during E3 on May 27th. And then it was going to be $399 because Sega unfortunately paid so much money for the research and development that they couldn't afford to bring it down because they had such a heavy cost and loss when they tried to do when they did the Sega CD because it didn't sell as good as they wanted to, right? Because people thought it was like, gimmicky, and they didn't realize that they were trying to explore into the realms of making games on an actual disc as opposed to a cartridge. And then, after that, they did the 32X, which Bernie Storlards, or Tom Kalinske completely was apprehensive. Don't do that because, it might affect the sales for Saturn because it's only about a year away from each other. But then he also put out statements, which I still have them in screenshots of the statements he put out where he said they just, because of the Sega Genesis doing so well and has so much of an install base, they didn't want to make nobody feel like they had to go out and pay $400 right away and get a Saturn. So they wanted to give them a more affordable option that they can just attach to the existing Genesis and play actual next generation 32-bit games on the Genesis, but with obviously some caveats and some types of downscaling. Like obviously the audio wasn't as good, or the audio would be better, but maybe the frame rate wouldn't be as high. With its limit, with some limits, basically, right? Because it wasn't going to be to the standard or the level of the Saturn because it was an adapted piece. It wasn't an actual whole console. And people took it as, oh, they're trying to rob our money. And that wasn't the case. Because if you see the documentary and they talked about it, he said, Tom Kalinske, I was telling them in Sega Japan, no, let's wait. Let's just scrap it. But they didn't listen to him. And then he said, well, we wanted to give something to this existing fan base, an option without having to jump right into Saturn. But it backfired. So the R&D for the Sega Saturn was very high for them because it had 7 processors, and they all had to be, you had to program with each processor individually, each and every one. It was so ahead of its time that I think it was in just 2020, right? They finally unlocked the fucking thing, or in 2019, they were able to unlock and to be able to hack it, or do emulations for it, because it was that ahead of its time. You remember that E-Rock talked about that.
Well, if you go back and you look at the structure of how Sega was, because they were born arcade.
Mm-hmm.
That's
well, they did that. Remember, they did that real quick. I'm sorry, because I know I talked already a whole shitload, but they really did that with the Saturn, because remember, with the situation before the Saturn, it was that they were pirating their games, if you remember. And they wanted to avoid pirating. That's why they made it so difficult to program for. That you couldn't just be able to just pirate or burn one of their games and put it on another console, because that's what happened with the Nintendo when they brought over Shinobi, Ultra Beast, and I think it was Outrun through Tension, and they had no permission. They went through a loophole and brought it out. Sega never gave them permission, and those games were on Nintendo, if you remember. That's what they were trying to avoid. But go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
No, so when you look at the structure, right, it doesn't surprise me because that's how they're geared, right? Because they're first and foremost, it's arcade. A lot of their guys came out
Absolutely
of their arcade teams and stuff like that to formulate stuff on the console. That's why that's one of the great things, the testament to how great Sega is when they came out with Soul Calibur, right? Because it was basically the Naomi board.
It was a Namco game. Yeah. And they made it run better on their arcade board, which was the Naomi one at the time.
Yeah. So it's because it's ingrained in them. Now I will say, to your point, I do feel some kind of way, because I remember, right, the panicking with Sega because the whole 3D thing was coming out. Which any gamer, I remember, this is any gamer. I'm not talking about the normies that eventually came in, but any gamer that was at Circuit City or Goodfellas. No, was it Circuit City? No, Best Buy. Or Best Buy, Circuit City, or Goodfellas. One of those. They always had the display, right? And they had the PlayStation there displaying it. Every gamer that went over there to play the game, I looked at the game. We all knew it looked like trash, right? Battle Arena Toshinden looked like trash. It controlled like trash. There's really nothing great about it, right?
You're talking about for the PlayStation 1, right?
First PlayStation, right? Because they would have it on display there. Because and the odd thing about it, and nobody talks about this, is what really pisses me off too. I know that we're supposed to be happy; it's a joyous day. All these memories, right? What really pissed me off is anybody worth anything, like me and you, probably Sega Man as well, right? Because we also dabbled in analog and digital back then, right? We were
remember the first analog stick was done. I think it was with Nintendo, but then they made that other controller that was dedicated for Nights into Dreams, which was an analog style. You get what I'm saying? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but for guys like us, dude, that we could go into an electronic shop, we didn't have to just occupy where the video games were, right? Where we were by the stereo equipment, we were by the TV shelf systems, were big at that time, right? So you kind of knew a lot of stuff about electronics. So when I saw PlayStation for the first time, right, and I looked at it as a Sony brand trying to play, like how people looked at Xbox as Microsoft as a software company trying to get into games. I looked at the PlayStation originally as them being an entertainment type company with them being an electronics type company trying to break into the gaming industry. And a lot of gamers
Public.
felt that way, dude. Nobody bought this thing,
Yeah.
right? Unless you were a Sony fanboy, like me. I mean, I love their TVs, I love their stereos, I love the electronics that they had. Those are the only guys I knew that bought it. But when you played that game, dude, it was absolute trash. The 3D, everybody like sometimes I listen to some of these guys and they wax poetic on this thing, and I'm like, this
Yep.
thing was absolute trash because 3D wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere close near to ready. In fact, some of the 3D stuff you had, the best stuff was in the arcade. And even then, man, because Sega was a pioneer, Namco was a pioneer, because people, we look at 3D now as commonplace, right? In fact, they're doing all kind of stuff with 3D right now. But back in the day when we were growing up, dude,
At the time, everybody was like, "Oh my God, Battle System!" They talk about it today like it was the greatest thing. When we had actual Virtual Fighter 2, that was amazing, and it was on another level.
well, it took Virtual Fighter. I remember when that hit the arcade, and it was so here's my point. So where all this stuff was born and bred was in the arcade, right?
In
So
the arcade, I
right?
Sega.
Like we saw the evolution of the 2D, right? And that's was the Saturn's bread and butter. So on to your point about the Saturn, that's the only thing I didn't like about the Saturn is I wish they would have dove into it because they saw look Sega was very future thinking. They always looked to their futures. They always had their finger on the pulse, and they saw the 3D. They looked at 3D a certain way, and they're working on it for their arcade games. So for their console games, I know deep down inside they realized, look, this is probably not going to work out. Same thing with Phil Spencer at the whole virtual thing, right? He knows, right? He's been in the
Right.
gaming industry enough to know, right? Like, look, there's no point in doing this. That's why I felt Sega felt like, but I think they panicked when because Sony's such a people don't realize how big Sony was back then, right? They were
Yeah,
huge, right?
they
They
were
were like the Apple of the time. Yeah, they were the big
that was
dog.
because of from their entertainment background, their movie background. Yeah,
Yeah, all of that stuff. And so I remember Sega with the Saturn, man, trying to get the Saturn to be like more friendly towards polygons, right?
yeah.
And
I
the
mean,
Saturn had its
they
core.
built it where you can do it,
Yeah.
but it was hard. Only like when they did their 3D games, they came out masterful. Like the Last Bronx, right? For example, or Virtual Fighter 2, or Sega Rally Racing. But when other developers tried to, because it was so complex and so ahead of its time, they made it really, really difficult. And then that's why they lean more towards PlayStation because the way it was designed, where the actual chip did all the work, they didn't have to do nothing. And we're seeing that shit still today.
But I wish Sega would have just would have battened the hatches down, just would have stuck with their original plan because those
Right,
games, those
right.
games that they have, still stand the test of time to today, and that's because that's what the Saturn was built for. And this is why
Right.
a lot of people bought the 4 meg like I did because I was a fighting fanatic back then, dude. And I went and bought that 4 meg cart so I could play what is it, Marvel
Yeah.
Superheroes?
Yes.
No, was it X-Men, Street Fighter? Dang, I'm old.
No, it was all of them. It was X-Men, Street Fighter, Children of the Atoms. It was all of them because the mega that cart meg had the rest of the information, like the rest of the animations, and it would help the console maintain a steady 60 frames with all the animations. That's what the memory card was for.
Well, so granted, I had to get my Saturn modded, and I think later on they got it to a point where you didn't need to, but I already had mine modded, right? And so that was the most high quality stuff, and that's so my point is like to what you were saying. That's the only thing that disappointed me about the Saturn. To me, they just should have carried on because they had great games, dude. And then it was
Yeah.
expanded more since my console was modded, right? Of course, you could get a lot of stuff from Japan.
Yeah.
Then they went to a different direction, which is the porn thing, which I wasn't into. But
Yeah.
there's some stuff that kept that console going, and had they just look, I know they're in a difficult situation, right? Like you're talking about what was going on with Sega Japan, Sega of America, and all that stuff, right? I
Mhm.
mean, how that would eventually. But I'm just saying, dude, if Saturn just would have just stood their ground, I think the Saturn would have had a little bit more years on it, and then the Dreamcast.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of feel like they gave up on it way too fast. Also, like but I think it was because they were just bleeding money. They were hemorrhaging money, and I think that was what the biggest, culprit was for the Saturn, for the biggest thorn in their ass, so to speak, right?
Right.
Under, so it's hard because it's like a double-edged sword, and we understood, but it was also making us angry because we knew the only people that deserved to be on that mantle was Sega, not Sony. We knew that. We knew that, right? Especially by the games, even by today's standard. If you go play PlayStation 1 games, they look like absolute dog shit. They play like absolute dog shit. They don't hold up. But you can go play a Saturn game like Clockwork Knight, right? Three Dirty Dwarves, or something like Virtual Fighter Part 2, and they still hold and stand the test of time. That's how you know that the machine was a much better made piece of hardware that just was difficult to develop for, and developers just were being lazy. Oh no, we don't want to do all that work, and plus it didn't help that PlayStation was $100 cheaper. It was selling in the boatloads because people saw the name Sony, and they automatically say, "Oh, Sony, it's got to be quality." You get what I'm saying? And then because of the the 3D chip being more advanced that they put in, because they were doing the console like a year later after Saturn already had been in the market in Japan for like almost 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So they were able to put the more advanced chip of 3D or of 3D polygon display on PlayStation, so it would make like keep going, like keep go that slow, keep going.
Dude, it was funny because my friend
And,
bought a Saturn before I did, and so I was gonna go get my Saturn, and
yeah,
because PlayStation had do you guys know what is it called Wing Commander,
Wing
um,
Command, yeah, yeah.
and on a PlayStation it's called, I think it was called Heart of the Karathi. So the interesting thing is because he loved Wing Commander. He played on the Super Nintendo all the time. So
Which was originally a PC game at the time. I remember.
yeah, well, so PlayStation was going to get on there, and one of the reasons why he got it, he loved the game. Um, but Wing Commander actually had full motion video (FMV), right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so they had our boy man Mark Hamill, right? He was the actor. So he was the actor in it. There's this girl in there. I think she was a porn star at the time. She was
Yeah,
on
yeah,
there.
yeah,
He was telling me all this stuff. Now he loved no, don't get me wrong. He loved the game, right? But this is the time of full motion video, right? And so
but it
I
was in
would
its
watch
infancy.
it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was saying that was the time where it was in its infancy, but it was
Yes,
also where everybody was interested in getting attracted because it was the first time that you were able to put video quality, either cutscenes with in-game cutscenes or with real life or animations or anime,
yeah,
make the game feel more cinematics.
yes,
The game started to feel more cinematic, right? Like, oh,
yeah.
this
Well, that's
feels
the
now
Sony
like
console.
almost borderline like a movie now, right? It
Well,
was
it
try. It
was.
was that. Huh?
I mean, so I watched him play this whole game, and it was. And I'm not gonna lie, dude. It was cool. It was really cool, especially for its time, right? I mean,
Right.
this is
Mhm.
way above night. This is way before Night Trap and Sewer
Well,
Shark.
that's why I said when people say, "Oh, Sony started cinematic games," no, it didn't. You dumb fuck. It was Sega. It started with the Saturn, and actually with the Sega CD, and then transitioned in. Then when they made the PlayStation, obviously they put the same implementations and technology, which they didn't even pay for because we all know it was Nintendo that paid for the R&D of the whole console anyway. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, I
Um,
just find it ironic because looking back, because I was thinking about that today, how much like that's how I got my first Saturn. Because of course the first game I bought was Virtual Fighter, right? So that I
yep,
could practice, man, and well, this is where I found out, dude, that some of the people at the arcades actually had the moves list, and this is why they could pull off the moves because they knew how to do it. But you guys got to remember, man, back then, aside from Street Fighter, some of the cabins in it showed you how to do some of the moves. The majority of the time, nobody knew how to do the moves. You have to
that's
learn
right.
how to do it. You have to know
That's
somebody that did
right.
it. This is why there was a community of people at arcades. And so once I got my Saturn, dude, I could practice all the moves. And I didn't realize how simple some of the stuff was that I couldn't figure out. And then that's when I went back to the arcades. I started beating everybody, dude. That's how much I love Virtual Fighter.
Right. Yeah,
But he
because of the
said,
help the console would always help you learn how to play a game better that you didn't know how to play in the arcade, especially when it was a fighting game.
yeah, definitely. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
real quick. Hey, what's up, Sega Man, my brother?
Buenos dias.
Hey,
Well,
bro. Great talking to
brother.
you, bro.
Hey,
How's
take it, man.
everybody?
We're just there reminiscing, talking about the Dreamcast and how it
Oh,
all and where it stemmed from, how it got to that point. Since it's
nice,
not
nice, nice.
it's the birthday today, of Dreamcast.
Oh, I
25
know.
years,
That's 25.
Awesome, 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 ain't it?
long fucking time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good time.
Yesterday.
You know what? You know what's not so awesome. Is James Earl Jones dying.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I talked about that earlier. Yeah.
I was shocked, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Wow, bro.
he was 93. Like, he wasn't a spring chicken. Man was
Yeah.
born in the 30s. Like,
Yeah,
he's
man.
had a good life, thank God. But he's still going to be obviously greatly missed. Anytime one of those legends and icons, and and pretty much people that we looked up to, because they
Yeah.
were our heroes as we grew up.
Oh
When
yeah.
they pass away, it's always sad because you're like, you realize, damn, the legacy's less and less people, and we're the ones that are the next in line to start
Oh, yeah.
dropping like flies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, damn, I'm getting old.
It definitely makes you think about your mortality, brother. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but
For sure.
I think it was interesting because I was gonna make my social media today, Sega
Uh-huh.
man, just everything about Sega, and then I saw the news drop, and I was like, oh, dude, I can't do my boy like that. You know what I mean? This dude, I
Mhm.
had to pay respect. So it was cool, man. I had two things going on at the same time, kind of juxtaposed. But I basically, celebration of Sega, everything that was going on. I enjoyed a lot of the stories that I was putting up there, man. People going down
Yeah.
memory lane, reminded me a little bit of you, and of course he bought. People, this one dude shared the original official Dreamcast first issue. Yeah, he shared a picture of that. I mean, it was just, the community was just bonding in a way that I haven't felt in a while. I mean, we're mostly on the Xbox side now. Sega's no longer that Sega that we knew. But it just shows, man, that the fans are still out there. Look at like Pepe. Pepe is bringing up some stuff about. I do know Sega made some developers mad by killing Saturn 2 years and going to Dreamcast. Then they moved the release up early by a few months before more days finished. Yeah, Pepe. And another thing, dude, Sony also capitalized on that as well.
Right,
Yeah,
they did that because of Sony, because they knew Sony had the flexibility, right, to release the PlayStation 1 at $100 cheaper and a cheaper price point than they were. And again, like I said earlier, if you were listening, the Saturn had been out almost 2 years already in Japan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they were trying to bring it out in the US, but they knew it was going to be really expensive because of the hardware that they used. Remember, it had two 32-bit Hitachi Ichiro memory and CPU cards in it.
Yeah.
You were that if you learned the console, you were able to use it together and make the games look even better because it was future proof. But they never got to that point. The console was really a 64-bit console at the time, but you needed to learn the hardware, and that was their idea. They were trying to continue to push it forward and future-proof it, but it didn't get to that point because the sales were just abysmal. They were like, I don't even know how much they sold that first year, but I know it was bad. It was a low number. And even Lifetime, I think Lifetime numbers was probably like, they got to like 10, maybe 15 million. That's it.
You can tell that.
PlayStation was like at like 60 million and shit. I was like, what the fuck?
Back then we didn't know, we didn't have internet or anything like that. You would
we would find out after the fact, right?
Well, but you would know in real time if by stuff like shelf space.
Yes. Yeah. And every time you went, you saw that the Saturn section, for example, would either get smaller and smaller, and another way you knew too, they would put it in the back of the store where nobody pays attention. That's when you knew it wasn't good. Like, wait, what? The Saturn shit's all the way in the back. Meanwhile, in the front, you walk in and it was like PlayStation land and shit with everything in the front, nice and big, blah 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 blah, shoving it down your fucking throat. I'm like, God dang. It was bittersweet, man, because I really hate it what Sony did. I was so fucking mad. I didn't buy that shit. I was like, go fuck yourself. I didn't play I didn't play again until Dreamcast came back out. Like, I kept playing, but I kept playing on my Saturn because I never bothered to buy anything else until Dreamcast. So I was like, you
playing on mine
go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself, you fucking cunts. I'm never supporting Sony, ever. And that's how I've been for a long time. I mean, people don't believe me, but I'm like, bro, I don't. I buy everything that they get when it's clearance and on the cheap. I don't buy that shit full price. I mean, I did recently, but that's because I want to prove some points that some fake motherfuckers parked next to it.
Yeah, I heard
You know
you
what I
talk
mean?
about that. That was,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but you know, and again, a good point that you know I also didn't bring up or I didn't say. The thing was that was really unbelievable because even you saw it in the media when they were doing the you know through Game Pro magazine, through you know Gamers Republic, and all those you know, solicitations of all those magazines at the time. How everybody was mind boggled because the Dreamcast was actually the first time that they were able to put an arcade motherboard in a home console at an affordable price. At an affordable price. Because the Neo Geo did it, but we all remember the Neo Geo was like $1,000 back then,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
controller was like $350 if you bought an extra controller. And the game cartridges were like $199, $250. Like it was crazy.
They were expensive.
Crazy. But it was arcade perfect, right? So
Yeah.
that console was just came out way ahead of its time, and that's why it didn't do well because it was for the super rich at the time. But Dreamcast changed all that. That's when Dreamcast, you know, with because it was the idea of you know of our boy, what's his name, Peter Moore. He's like,
Yeah.
listen, we need to do this, and we need to keep it at cost because and just figure out a way to put the board in, but make it affordable. And that's when they put the less memory, but it was the exact same board. So all they needed to do was, if you needed more memory, you could put it either to the controller or to the side panel that it had, where you would open it and add it the same way they did it with the cartridge with the Saturn. You could add additional memory. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
and a lot of these people that were doing you know the magazines at the time, they were like they couldn't even believe it. But then all made sense why you know Grand Prix GT and the fishing game Sega Bass Fishing and Crazy Taxi and House of the Dead 2. It made sense why they looked almost arcade perfect because they were. You know what I mean? Because the power
Yeah.
was there.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So maybe you know had longer loading times. You know because in arcades you didn't have to wait for such things as loading time and stuff like that because it was instantaneous because it was all in a car and a board that essentially would have been a cartridge for a home console if they made that board into a cartridge. You know, that's the biggest difference. But these games were running on a CD technology, which was brand new still for gaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a big fucking deal. That was a game changer. And again, like so when we saw that Soul Calibur was like better than the arcade version from Namco. Everybody was like, "Holy shit! What the fuck is this?" You know, and even all these developers wanted to make games for it. You know, and then you saw Peter Moore said it that because Sony got so scared, they started fear mongering developers, telling them, "Oh, but it don't have long lasting life because it don't have enough memory. Our game is going to be our console is going to be able to do 128 bits games per you know is going to be able to do 120 frames or 60 frames. Even back then with the PS2, they were bullshitting. I remember when they were showing that Ducky. Was it the Ducky demo or was that for PS3? I don't remember.
Ducky?
Yeah, the one with the ducks in the pool inside the tub. I don't remember if that was for the PS2 that they demoed that, or if it was for the PS3.
It was a PS3.
Oh, okay. I know they showed some demos and stuff, and people were like, "You're gonna be able to do that," and the whole snitch, or or the whole they all think they were capitalizing on, or hoping to capitalize on, which they did, was that they say, "Oh, it's gonna have a built-in DVD player." You see, that's when everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's going to be a DVD player too." So they weren't even worrying about games; they were worrying about that it was going to be a DVD player because at that point, DVD was the big thing. You know, it was getting movies on a disc with super high quality, never seen before since VHS and Betamax. So everybody was hyped up about the whole DVD movement, right? And so when they said, "Oh, it's going to be included in the console," oh my God, I gotta get this. It's gonna have a DVD player. I gotta get this. It's gonna be incredible. They weren't talking about I gotta get it because it was gonna have fantastic games. Shit, when that fucking console launched, it had horrendous games. It was horrible. I remember that fucking one of the games was what Fantasia Vision, the one with the fireworks. If you guys remember that shit,
Yeah, I remember that.
Fantavision or whatever. I'm like, a game about fireworks. Are you fucking kidding me? You see what I'm saying? And it was like $50 at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you serious? You know, and then I remember they were hyping up, you know, because then, you know, when Nintendo made their announcement that they were going to bring out the 64, that kind of brought down the hype level a little bit for the PS2. But then when they saw how the games didn't look that great for the time, because they look very muddy and kind of Vaseline-ish, you know, that kind of, and then the fucking cartridges were like $90. They got all fucking. They were like, oh no, it was a bad point in Nintendo's time too, because they stayed with cartridge, and at that time it was getting too pricey for cartridge, you know. So it was a kind of bad decision on their part, and that's when they started having issues with their consoles as well. Because people try to make it seem like Nintendo's been perfect when they didn't really have a lot of success with the 64. They didn't have a lot of success with the GameCube. They didn't have a lot of success with the Wii, the Wii U. What sustained Nintendo was always because they had the handheld market. Because the DS was always doing good for them every single time. And that's what helped them sustain the Nintendo company as a whole. So if a console didn't do that well, because your handheld did well, they were able to make up the cost for the R&D for the console with the same handheld, with the money they made off the handhelds as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why they were able to survive. If not, they would have been, Nintendo would have been bankrupt long ago. You know? But again, you know, like the Dreamcast was, and that's why I consider it one of the greatest consoles of all time. Even though my favorite will always be Saturn, but it's definitely I feel it's better because people try to say that belongs now to 360, but for me, I kind of feel it will always be for Dreamcast because the Dreamcast did so much with such short amount of time, had such an extensive library in such an amount of short time, and all the features that were very next gen and evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, just real quickly, let me address Pepe Le Pew's comment. Sega Dreamcast controller lived on in the Xbox in a way if you look at both of them. Yeah, Pepe, in fact, I'll go further than that. I just wrote a comment down as well.
Yeah.
Where it says, there's a lot of things Xbox learned from Sega in both gaming and aesthetics. And one of the things that I like the most, that I want Microsoft to actually expand on, though I will say, as far as Phil and Xbox, I know that they're, maybe not as strong-headed as Sega did, but there was a point in time in the 90s going into the 2000s where Sega had built this suite of studios that was a combination of both their arcade acumen and then transitioning into the console space. And it was an amalgamation of both of those two things. And it was an absolute symphony. I became a big fan of a lot of the developers. I was already a fan of them, but it was more on the arcade side.
Like amusement. What was it called? Secret level, right? AM2.
Hitmaker.
Wow Entertainment. Wow Entertainment. Hitmaker.
Yep, AM2. Yep.
They had like AM2, AM3, AM4. And then they transitioned to the actual studio. So they put these guys together and made them to what kind of Microsoft is doing right now with their studio. Right now, granted, Phil them have a background in this from his time when he started off at Microsoft, but that was more on the PC side, right? So right now, and I'm not taking a shot at that, it's just they transition. But that's one of the things I see, Pepe, like that they kind of learn from Sega. There's a lot of stuff that they do.
Well, that's another thing. I'm sorry, Sega. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say. So there's a lot of things that they do, which is probably why I'm a huge Xbox fan now. I mean, I really don't have a choice because I hate PlayStation, as you guys know. I don't really play Nintendo on that level, and I've left Nintendo behind. But that's why I'm on Xbox right now because they do have a lot of things that they do that is very Sega centric. Sorry, Hiba, go ahead.
Well, I mean, Microsoft played a big part in the success of Dreamcast as well because
Hmm.
it was them that did all the online infrastructure for the Dreamcast
Yep.
and helped Sega do it with the Windows CE, which was built right in the console, and that never happened before. That was the first time ever. That it had built-in online capabilities to via modem, but it was still done with the help of Microsoft. And that's why you were able to play games like Alien Front or Alien Nation, I think it was, or Alien Front, which was the military versus the aliens online, and it worked brilliant. It was amazing, really good experience, right? So that's why they kind of garnered that big ass relationship that they had, right? And many people are
Mhm.
trying to say, oh, they can't buy Sega. I say, listen, the only place when you go back into history, right? The only place that it would make 100% sense for Sega to continue their legacy and live on would be under the moniker of Xbox because they've been in a big marriage relationship via through the industry since Dreamcast. And and some of their biggest next gen titles and biggest new IPs like Otagi, Gun Valkyrie, for example, Panzer Dragoon Ortha, right, came from the OG Xbox era because of the deal that Peter Moore was able to establish with them, right? You think their IPs like Yakuza that's quality Sega? For me, I don't think that's quality Sega. I think that's mid Sega. That's why I don't
Uh-huh.
like it. It's a good series, but I don't like it as much as I did with Shemu. I don't like it as much as anything else they did. You know what I mean? And I know
Yeah.
people will be like, "Oh, you're crazy, blasphemy." No, I feel that's mid Sega because they're trying to appeal and be too much to the Asian audience when Sega, as my brother man Sega Forever from Hawaii actually pointed out to me, which I didn't know until that point, they were really a Hawaiian company. They started in Hawaii,
Hmm.
right, to service the military men. And they were a company that would build like entertainment stuff, like toys, pinball machines, things like of that nature. And then they transitioned and later on started doing video games, and then went to Japan. And I think they got like unified together with a Japanese
Hmm.
company, and that's how they became Sega of Japan. But they were really a Hawaiian company, right? And I didn't know that. And so again, our brother here, Sega Forever, pointed that out. I never really knew that, right? And so, one of the biggest things that was the most brilliant part, not just with Dreamcast, but with the Sega legacy in general, with every console, that people don't seem to realize, and that's why I said that Nintendo, even for me, which has always been mid, is because Sega had the ability not only to have arcade games in the arcade, but they brought versions of those arcade games to home console. They made original IPs that were just as good as their arcade counterparts to the standards of the hardware directly and exclusively to their hardware console at home as well. And also had games that were third party only to Sega consoles because the hardware they would build would be better and not inferior in comparison to all the competition. So that's why
Hmm.
you saw games like Rastan only existed on the Sega Master System
Yeah.
and not the Nintendo. You see what I'm saying? When Nintendo had things like Castlevania or things like Metal Gear, it was because they bought out the exclusivity. But those games could have ran on.
Hello?
Hello?
Did we lose Hiba?
Ebot, you there, brother?
Hiba. Dude, it's always
Uh,
when he gets on a roll, right? Then his microphone dies.
yeah, man.
I'm
Always
listening to him and I'm waiting for him to keep on going, and it's like,
happens.
Well, you know, Ebot will be back in, dude.
Yeah, he'll be back.
It might be his battery or something. But so, what's up, my brother? How's your day been going?
Oh, pretty good, man. How about you? How's everything been?
Well, I mean, aside from James Earl Jones, like you said, um, you know,
Yep.
and it was interesting because a lot of the people I follow, because he's more than just a Star Wars guy. He's also an entertainment industry person, humanitarian. He
Oh
broke a
yeah.
lot. He broke a lot of barriers, right?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He did.
He's
He
right up there.
definitely did.
Yep. He's right up there with Sidney Poitier, you know, and say,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
and he just again, he's just one of those guys, and this is why I gravitate towards actors that are like this, dude. They have a certain presence about them, and a body of work that just can't be touched, you know. So, and this is a side of all the Darth Vader thing, you know. Darth Vader, he's etched himself in immortality because of his voice and that character. Probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest scenes of all time in cinematic history. When you know, Luke, I'm your father, right? I remember watching that in real time. Brother. I remember watching that in real time and just like I could not. I was like, I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. He was. Yeah. He was. He was good in Conan too.
Yeah, Conan, and that's what I was telling my coworker. We were talking about it, and it amazed me because she was talking about it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Hey. Oh my God. What I was trying to say was like that when I'm sorry, did I cut something off you guys were saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish first. Finish.
We were just waiting for you, dude. Basically.
Oh, okay, okay. And I'm sorry that I'm being long-winded. It's just I have so much information in my
it's
head
okay,
that
Ebot.
Yeah,
I just remember it naturally, and I keep on repeating and bringing other stuff up from one thing to another because I just have all that information. So I'm sorry about that. I don't mean to be long-winded, but
no, dude.
Um,
The people need to know.
so like I was saying was in comparison, right? When Nintendo had Castlevania, Contra, Metal Gear, and Ninja Gaiden, which were all big IPs going forward, right? They had it because they did what Sony did after the fact, right? They were buying the exclusivities of these titles and not allowing them, Konami, Capcom, you know, even Tecmo, to put them on the Sega console. That's what they were doing. But those games would have actually ran better on the Sega console and hardware, without a doubt. Because later on, for example, Ninja Gaiden came out for Sega Master System, a version of Ninja Gaiden, and it was way better than the Nintendo one. And a lot of people don't even know that, right? Or remember, right? So the difference was whatever Sega was doing a deal with someone at that point to bring something exclusive from like a third party, it wasn't because they were trying to keep it off of Nintendo. It was because they knew, the developers, from a hardware standpoint, that their consoles were always more advanced and far more superior, right? And that's why you saw, like I said, big titles like Rambo, you know, like Rastan, you know, Spy versus Spy, Rolling Thunder on those consoles, you know, like the Sega Master System. And you couldn't even find a version of those on the Nintendo.
Yeah.
And people don't even realize, yo, damn, you mean, oh, for real? Rastan was exclusive, or Rescue Mission? Yes, it was or Global Defense exclusive. Yes. So they had third-party original IPs that they would create, right? Like Consaden, right? And then they would also have the arcade stuff. So Sega gave you so much firepower when it came to games and software that there was no way that Nintendo can match in that sense, because people would always buy way more games on the Master System when they bought them, or on the, you know, or on the Genesis. That's why Genesis became such a big hit, and it still outbeat the Nintendo, even though the Nintendo did have superior hardware, but it wasn't able to do certain things that the Genesis could, and that's why you were able to see like games like Aladdin. They were able to transfer and make the games like Aladdin look more like the actual animation in the movie, as opposed to Nintendo couldn't do that. Nintendo was built heavily on polygons and graphics, so they could only make it look more 3D. So if you play the 3D, the Aladdin version of Super Nintendo, it looks more 3D. It doesn't look like the movie. As opposed to Sega, when you play the Sega version of Aladdin, it looks like you were playing the movie. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The animations were spectacular from the Disney developers and how it looked incredible. You know, and Michael Jackson used to love Sega for that same reason. He had a really big relationship with them as well because he used to love what they did, with what they would do, and how they would innovate and things of that nature. You know, so in every generation, Sega was able to deliver that, and especially with Dreamcast, they were able to deliver that, even though it was their last hurrah, right, so to speak. But when you look at PlayStation and PS2 and PS1, they had games there because they bought out developers. That's it. They weren't hiring guys to make developers to create incredible games like Hitmaker or like AM1, AM2 with Yu Suzuki, right? At the time, they were just buying developers to bring games exclusively to their console, but they weren't helping them create unique experiences the way that Sega was doing when they built those actual, when they built those actual games that were from the arcade or the home console versions like Shinobi, like Dino Dancer or Shinobi's Revenge, you know what I mean, or the incredible Streets of Rage that still this day is probably considered one of the greatest beat 'em up of all time. And it was a home console version. You see what I'm saying? So, that's why I said it's not orange and apples to oranges, clear cut comparison.
Yeah.
So when I see people be like, oh no, that Sega's great. We love Sega. This Sega's amazing. No. Sega of today is a fucking joke to what Sega was before. Yeah, they make their Sonics, but their Sonic games don't have the same quality anymore. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And that's why, I can't stand Sega of today. And I've said it multiple times. Because they also combined themselves with Sammy Atlas and with Atlas. And I feel that brought down the quality more in their realm because they let too many Atlas and Sammy developers make games for them. And their talent over there wasn't as prominent and pivotal as the talent that Sega already had in house. You know what I mean? And
a lot of those people left too, man.
Yeah, a lot of those people like Yuji Naka, he bounced. A lot of Yu Suzuki, he left. A lot of them.
I mean, just and their team. So yeah, the Sega now is totally different. Like for me, I like the Yakuza series. I talked about that because I refused to play that series because number one, because it's the predecessor, it inherited Shenmue, which we should have got all our games, which we never did. So I always had I always had like this grudge against Yakuza. So now that I played it and I like it, and because maybe it's like so far removed, but I will say this, dude. I mean, yeah, I even though I like the series, it is something that I enjoy playing, but it's definitely a product of its time. And
yes,
it's nowhere near the quality. I agree with you 100%. This is not the Sega.
Like if we had the Sega, I know exactly what you mean, brother. But if we had the Sega that we had during the era when they were making that, they were at the creme de la creme. If we had that Sega with that type of talent, that would have been inherited by the newer game developers, right? Because they would have been their mentors and taught them. Today, they probably would have been the number one developer still today. There would be nobody to be able to beat them today if they had that same type of talent from then. I don't have no doubt in my mind because only they were able to captivate the most creative and unique ideas than anybody else. And half of the industry right now, most of those things that you see that look incredible, from Wukong to everything you see on games like Astrobot as a platformer and all that, those were all inherited from Sega. If you look at it, all the ideas and all that stuff Sega had done that before in games years ago. The big, huge boss battles, that started with Sega games. You never really had with other consoles. You know what I mean? And I the only console and company that really tried to deliver at the same type of quality as Sega that I felt was a shame because they didn't have the brand recognition and they actually deserve to have been there side by side with Sega. Honestly, to me, was NEC with the Turbo Graphics, because I thought the Turbo Graphics did some incredible games, and you saw that there was a lot of talent there, and they could have been big. But alongside the Sega Genesis. But because of the brand recognition not being there, even though NEC have been around for years, and they actually helped Sega with the Saturn and with Microsoft with the HD DVD technology, through the years, they definitely, I thought, deserve to be there. But because the Sega brand with the Genesis became so strong, and their obviously their pedigree, and that they were pioneers at the time from not only home consoles but in the arcade, they had no chance. They couldn't stand the chance. But that's the only company at the
Hello? You're bouncing a little bit.
Yeah, I think we lost. I think he's in the hallway.
You know what he is? You know what he does? He goes in the elevator.
Yeah, and then we lose him. He'll be back.
You know, I actually been in that elevator with him, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, did you see his house, man? He showed it on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thing looks sweet.
I think is that the one they're getting?
I hope so. It looks nice, man. There's enough space for him. Nice yard. He said his daughter got her license, so.
Oh, that's good.
I know. So I pray for him, man. I really want to, I think that'd be looks like a great change of pace, man. A little bit more away from the hustle and bustle, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I tell you what, when your kids need their car fixed, it's expensive too.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. We're not getting any younger, my brother.
Nope.
We have to take advantage of those quiet moments.
You got that right.
Yeah, dude, I'm sitting here talking about this stuff, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was getting a little bit heated, like some of the stuff, not that he bought.
Well, when we were younger, Sega Forever, and all this Sega stuff, when it had Super NES, it was amazing. All the different peripherals that Sega brought out, it was just amazing time for us, man. The 32X, the Sega Saturn, then came the Dreamcast. In between, the games that came out for the 32X, just those time periods were great.
Mm-hmm.
We had fun times back then, man. You know?
He-Bot, your mic.
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
Okay, we got you.
It's just I'm home and it's loud, so I don't want to interrupt the sound while our brother's talking.
That's okay.
This is a Sega podcast, man. You go all in, bro.
Oh yeah. I was like He-Bot, I was just like him because a quick story, brothers. When I had my own apartment, when I was a bachelor, I had a friend that had a PlayStation 1, and he would always tease me about my Sega Saturn, always.
Yeah.
And I told him, and I said, Tony, man, I'm not buying a PlayStation 1. I don't want one. I like my Sega Saturn. Oh, well, the sports games suck on it. The Madden suck on it. It looks like garbage, They just look terrible, all this stuff. I said, well, that's your opinion, but I'm going to just keep playing my Children of the Atom, my Street Fighters, my Battle of Toshindens, all these great games on it that I still own today. Mr. Bones, Clockwork Knight.
Yeah, nice.
All these great games, Panzer Dragon.
Let me tell you something. When the game Action NBA came out, you remember the NBA game?
Yeah.
With Kobe Bryant in the cover for the Saturn?
Yeah.
I think it was called Action Replay. I don't know if if you can look it up for me. It was the first time that Visual Concept made a sports game.
Yeah.
And this is before their 2K series.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they first started. And I was telling everybody, this basketball game is way better than the EA Lakers versus Celtics shit that they would bring out every year.
Yeah.
I was telling them when they made the football, I was like, this game is better than the Madden And they were telling me, "You're crazy. You're bugging." I'm crazy. I'm bugging. Yeah, okay. And I remember every time that they would come to my house and I would show it to them. The guys that were like still liking stuff like the Madden and on the PlayStation 1 stuff like that. And they would do the same thing you just said. "Oh, you're corny. You got Sega. They suck." I'm like, "Suck my ass." And then I would show them the games, right? When I would show them the games, they would be like, "Oh shit, this shit is fire! Like this shit is good!" Like they would like, "Yo, I gotta get me a Saturn." I was like, "You can't get it anymore because it's not like that anymore. It's not available, right?" Because I kept buying it until they didn't make no more games at all. Until it was, that's why I was able to get a copy of like the Resident Evil Director's Cut. Like the fucking Burning Rangers. Shit, if you saw 2 copies of that in the store, you were lucky. Yeah, those were like the very final games. Like Panzer Dragon Saga, the RPG.
Yep.
And there was another one. It was the Tomb Raider, right? The Tomb Raider Director's Cut. Trying to think what else. It was a couple. Like it was a couple that just came out in really, really short amounts and really, really small amounts, and were very, very hard to get. Very hard. And I just was lucky enough that I knew the guys, because at the time I was going to school, to computer school, right?
Yeah.
Which was called the Plaza School of Technology in the Paramus Park Mall, right? In New Jersey. And I was going to get where I got my computer technician's degree and network administration. And every time I would go on my lunch, I would go to 2 places, which was the Babbage's that was there, and I would go to a comic shop called Bats, right? A small comic shop where they had the comics, some collecting. So that's why when I started getting into collecting like a lot of anime stuff, and at the same time I was, going to get my Sega Saturn games back. It was the only place that would carry them. And I remember walking, the guy I knew there, he was like, "Yo, I got in the Saturn stuff, come down, later." And I would go, and he would hold them for me. And literally, when he got Panzer Dragoon Saga, there was 1 copy. When he got the Resident Evil, there was 1 copy. When he the Mr. Bone, there was 1 copy. When he got what was the other one? The Panzer Dragoon Saga. No, Panzer Dragoon Saga. He had 1 copy. No, this was at the tail end of Sega Saturn. Like, was literally, the stores were literally getting 1 copy of the game. Because remember, back then, pre-order wasn't really a thing. You didn't get pre-order. There was no such thing as, pre-order it to guarantee you a copy. That didn't exist.
Yeah.
Back then they got a certain amount of stock. If the game sold well, they got more stock. If the game didn't sell well, they didn't get no more stock. That's how it was.
That's because you guys were on the East Coast. I found this out later, Hebot.
Really?
Because where I was, I had come to Hawaii already, right? So remember I told you I picked up multiple.
Yeah, I remember.
And as a collector, like one to play, one to keep, for collection.
Yes.
Yeah. The ones I told you I sold on eBay.
Yeah.
But I picked up multiple, like 2 copies of each.
Plus the covers are so beautiful too.
Well, you
really nice covers. That Burning Ranger cover was gorgeous.
Yeah. But coming towards the end of like you knew that Saturn was going to go away. Right? That's what they were dropping, the inventory drop. But I know that it went from west to east, and the more east it went, right? Because that lady I told you, like, she bought, was it $500? She bought House of the Dead from me on eBay.
Yes. Wow. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. House of the Dead. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah. Thank you, Sega Forever. That's the one. When I got there, House of the Dead, they only had gotten 2 copies, and he put 1 aside for me. And that's really where I started my relationship with building relationship with people from stores. Like, trying to get on their good side and be like, "Yo, can you do me the favor and hold it for me? I'll come get it." That's when it all started. When I started doing my console warring with other people in the store, and then I would break it down and bust the end. They'd be like, "Yo, this motherfucker's the truth. What the fuck? Like, where you got from?" You know what I mean? So that was when my reign first started, so to speak, of like establishing, and I still do it to today. I talk to people, and if I see like for example, I was trying to see if I can get an Astrobot controller because actually, I like the controller. I think it's nice. So as a collectible, because it's not going to work once they do the new future PlayStation, because they're not going to forward. It's not going to be forward compatible. That's the reason why I tell people that Xbox controllers is an investment that lasts forever, because they already made the promise and the commitment that everything you buy, as far as peripherals, will go forward with you with future consoles. They will be future forward compatible. Phil said that long ago, and that's what they've done. So I was like,
cool thing. Yeah, that's cool.
No, that's a great thing, because if you're going to buy a controller, if you're going to buy a controller for $70, right, or $65, right, or even $80, let's say, right, you feel much less apprehensive if you know that when the future consoles come out, you can still use it on your future consoles.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It almost becomes like a thorn in your side also, because now when you trade in your console to do trade or to buy a new one, normally they ask you, well, we need the controller. But what about if you don't want to give the controller, you want to keep it for the future? Then you lose value, and so they give you less money. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's another problem that it creates. But at the same time, it's a good problem. It's not a bad problem, right? So when I go buy an Xbox controller, I go with my chin up high, because I know I'm not wasting my money. I'm going to be able to play them on my future console. When I buy a PlayStation controller, it's like, well, I don't know, unless it's really special. That's why I only bought one, which was the 500th anniversary, because it had like a beautiful, scheme to it, and gold with a royal blue, and it's see-through. So I liked it. I bought it, and I never use it, because I'm afraid that if it breaks, I'm never going to be able to replace it. I'm not buying another one. I ain't paying no $400 and no fucking internet to get a replacement. Fuck you. And those controllers were made super cheap. They break easy, right? Especially the PS3 and PS2, 4. Oh, they cheap. So, mamita, I need something for you. So then, when I go get an Xbox controller like that new see-through one, I would love to get it. My birthday's coming up next month. But anyway, I would love to get it.
Don't worry, brother. We got you.
I would love to get it, but I have so much expenses, to be honest, and I have so much collecting habits that I just can't. I got to quick and choose my battles. But I know if I buy it, right, it's going to work in the future. I'm not going to have to worry about if it's not going to work, or even break down on me. It's like the argument that we've always had. Oh, why does Microsoft keep on doing the controller with batteries? Listen, that is the smartest thing they've done, and I hope they never change it, because having it that way, if the battery gets messed up internally, you can just change it, since it's a swappable battery. But if it was internal, you're not a tech person, guess what? You got to chuck the fucking controller away and buy a new one. For PlayStation, that's how it works. Everything's internal. So if it gets messed up, you can't replace it unless like you're a tech. And let's face it, I know, because I went to school for it. But not everybody knows. Sega Man may not know. Sega Forever may not know. Unlimited may not know. So they have no choice. If this shit breaks down, they got to buy a new controller for $70. We don't do that on Xbox. On Xbox, the battery wastes, the battery dies. We buy a brand new rechargeable battery, and we're good to go. And it costs about $10-12. Yeah. And that's why I always tell people, you're missing the point of the importance of having interchangeable batteries still with Xbox. You guys think is that they're dated and they don't want to evolve the console. No, they're doing it smart, because they're trying to protect you as a consumer from having to spend unnecessary money, because controllers, are used very, periodically and a lot, and they get the most wear and tear from any console. The console doesn't. It sits there, you dust it off, and you're good. Sit there and you're good. But a controller gets a lot of wear and tear and heavy usage. So they don't want to have to just go buy a new controller every fucking time, even though it would work in their benefit, because they would make more money. So in that sense, that's another consumer-friendly thing that they do, on top of making them forward compatible. You see? Which people love to ignore and never bring up, especially the media. They act like, oh, the controller for PlayStation, this is so next generation. I love it. It has all these features, and Microsoft behind so much. I wish they updated their... Listen, Astrobot, I played it for 2.5 hours, and the controller died on me, because it uses almost every functionality on the controller. So that right there is a caveat. That right there is a bad thing, because if I have to keep charging my controller to finish the game, that becomes a nuisance. But not one person talking about the game has mentioned that. Not one person has said, "Oh, it's fantastic," but unfortunately, because it uses all those cute little features, the controller dies pretty fast because it's using the features way too much, and it makes the battery die faster, which I mentioned in my video today. And again, that's a caveat that nobody's bringing up. But see, the Ebot will bring it up because I don't fuck around. I bring out the truth. I don't fucking suck Sony dick. I don't do that.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to bring it up. So, and that's why they get mad and they don't like me. Oh, you just a hater. You just a hater because the Xbox don't have it. I said, you know what? I don't want a stupid light. I don't want a speaker. I don't want a fucking goddamn touchpad. I don't want 500 rumble motors inside. I want whatever makes sense. DLI makes sense because it's for latency. And as long as the triggers give me a rumble feedback or a haptic feedback where I feel like I'm putting the pedal or driving a car or crashing, that's a good enough experience. That's enough. I don't need a light. What the fuck I need a light for? I don't need a fucking a mic to blow in the mic for what? You see what I'm trying to say?
Uh-huh.
The only thing that I can say is if the controller has a mic, the only good thing, right, is that if you don't have a fucking headset, you can still talk to the mic and record. But it's not good quality. It's like a real cheap quality. So is it really worth it? Probably not, because you're probably better off buying a headset regardless, because the sound quality, whenever you make a recording, is just going to sound completely bad. It's going to sound terrible. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's going to sound like you're under the water, kind of muffled. Sometimes it's going to sound raspy, and like it's breaking up because the speaker's cheap. It's a cheap speaker, but that brings an extra additional cost to the controller. That is why, most of PlayStation controllers are all $80, which now they're going to $85 because they snuck in a price hike and nobody said it. And the Xbox controllers are only $59 because they don't have all that other stupid gimmicky shit that developers barely used. If they use it from time to time, cool, but they barely use it. Let's be real. They don't use that kind of shit. I'd rather have a fishing rod to give me the feeling and the experience, like if I'm actually fishing with a fishing rod peripheral, than have a controller mimicking that when it's not going to be the same thing and yet still be very expensive and heavy on the battery.
Yeah, I agree.
Those are the type of things that that we sometimes overlook and take for granted, but that Microsoft is ahead of the game. As far as I'm concerned, because of the fact that it's much more consumer friendly, and it makes quality of life much better, as opposed to having to go, like I said, and buy a brand new controller just because you don't know how to switch out the battery. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then you call them and tell them to fix it or send you a replacement. They don't even do that either. If they do, you're gonna have to pay the same amount of money to get a new one, on top of shipping. So it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I veered off whatever we were talking about, but I know I was trying to say that because it came to my thoughts. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool. But let me see. What is this? Zobi said that the lady who made Final Fantasy Star passed away.
Oh, really?
Was that today, Zobi?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that would suck. I think the voice wasn't one of the people that did the voices. Zobi, we were just talking about that earlier, man. We're not spring chickens anymore.
Oh,
So
yeah.
a lot of the people that we grew up knowing, and I hate to use the word idolizing, right? But they had impacts on our lives and stuff like that. They're coming up on their twilight years. I mean, we all are at some point, but we just talked about James Earl Jones earlier. Lost a couple other people, a lot of other actors, and when I see them, you know them from when you were younger. Like we used to watch a lot. We grew up watching a lot of TV, and so these guys were in movies. They were in TV shows. Right? This is probably why I gravitate towards Korean dramas. I talk about it all the time on my channel.
Yeah.
Because that's how they are over there in Korea with a lot of the stuff. They're studio actors, right? So they do a lot of stuff with the studios. So you can see an actor in various roles. which is what I miss, man, because that's what to me made
Well,
it.
the other thing is too. The other thing is Sega Forever and Zobi, if you're still there. The other thing is that okay, a lot of these people that have been in the entertainment business for years through video games,
Mhm.
it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate, but they don't get recognized by mainstream media, right? They don't come up and say, "Oh yeah, you know, such and such person that the pioneer of this died today." They don't get recognized, unless it's somebody like the guy who created Mario, right? Because Mario is a American icon, right? At the same time, or the guy who, if it was some maybe like when Owada passed away, you didn't see much mainstream media as far as in the TV, like Channel 4, breaking the news and talking about it. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Now, socially, via YouTube and Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, yes, those medias, they all talked about it. But as far as the TV and old-fashioned style media, no, they don't. That's why when somebody like an actor dies, has been around there for years, like James Earl Jones. It's a big deal, and you can see it, and people recognize it because they talk about it everywhere, right? But again, for gaming, even though these people are legends, and these people are the reason why we have a lot of the technology that we have today in the forefront in video games and with VR and all kinds of stuff, they don't get acknowledged like that, right? And most people that are casual, that are not video game fans, are not going to know, right? Which is
Yeah.
it's kind of sad, it's kind of messed up, but
Yeah.
it is the truth, right?
I mean, it's also a different time, right? Because like I didn't like to me there wasn't rock star recognition for some of the hobbies that I liked. And in the case of comic books, it was when Jim Lee and those guys came into Marvel.
Yes.
And even though you might have known some of the best artists, unless you were core, you were core to the hobby, you probably didn't know them who they were. That's why a lot of times when I talk to my kids or I talk to the younger generation now, they were trying to cancel Frank Miller, and I was laughing, and I was in a forum, and I was writing to them, all the movies that you guys have been praising is all based on his characters, is based on his stories. He basically built the comic book world that you're enjoying right now for the movies and the modernity of it is it comes from him, and that this is the disconnect. And in some senses, I understand that because of course they wouldn't, you know what I mean. But that's just the reality of it. So, I mean, like until Cliff Blazinski came, I don't think anybody got that kind of status. I mean, of course, I know who Yuji Naka was.
Or Tobunobu Itagaki. He was the Japanese rock star.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of it has to do with the media because at that time,
Dead or
G4,
Alive was better than Tekken.
yeah, but
I
G4
don't
came
care what
in.
anybody says.
I mean,
Absolutely.
he would host the shows on G4. He had the personality to do so. There's a lot of those factors as well that you got to take into consideration.
I still have those. I still have all those demos of him actually on G4 on the Xbox demos talking about Dead or Alive 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dead or Alive was such a smooth fighting game experience.
Yes, it was, Ebon. It
It
was.
was like so smooth, and everything you did and the animations all felt like it kept up with the frame rates perfectly. When you play something like Tekken, it just feels kind of stiff and heavy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I don't know how to explain
I
it.
can't stand it, man.
The
I can't.
Tekken is very
It's really blocky. Like,
well
Because they were trying to mimic what Virtual Fighter was doing.
Yeah.
So Tekken,
Fighter has a distinct fighting style and feel because it's based off actual real martial arts styles of ancient Japan, right? So they did it deliberate, right? Mixed in with other things like wrestling, mixed with martial arts. But they were all based on realistic, real world martial arts moves that are inherited or were inherited in different martial arts styles.
yeah.
just trying to mimic that, but they weren't authentic, right?
Nah,
This is
just
why when it comes to this is why when it comes to fighting games, right? People have their favorites. So in the event of Tekken, man, one of my friends, dude, he's probably one of the best Tekken players I ever seen play. I mean, I can play Tekken. I'm not very good at it, and it's because of the
Right.
style. That's the style that of gameplay that Tekken has. But that's right up his alley because he plays King, and I have never seen anybody play King the way he does. I mean, he can do all the combos, laced into combos, and counters off combos, and that's the main grip of Tekken, right? It's very combo heavy. Virtual Fighter to me is a little bit more pure, something that I like more. They also focus on certain styles, but it's not overblown. I think the reason why Dead or Alive, and I trust me, guys, I played this. I've spent so many quarters, man, in arcades because that's what I used to play first and foremost with fighters.
Right.
When I was in the arcades, Dead or Alive did a really good job, like of appealing to both kind of more hardcore and a casual, because you could take it as deep as you wanted to at surface level, right? At surface level, you could jump in, like everybody says, you can button mash and stuff like that. But there was a deepness also to the game, not as hardcore as Tekken, but a little bit more than Virtual Fighter. I mean, I like all three. Virtual Fighter, of course, is my favorite.
yeah, Virtual Fighter.
Yeah.
But
Virtual Fighter 2 is
the
one of
thing
the
is
best.
too with Dead or Alive had the same smoothness in a fighting game that you felt in Ninja Gaiden being a hack and slash. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's because that's the style he likes. He loves the like when you look at Dead or Alive, regardless of what version, some definitely are older than others,
Wow.
but he definitely liked the human form. He definitely likes the female form.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to present it in a way. There's like this. You know how everybody gives what's his name? Who's the guy that does Dove? John Woo. Every of his movies, he's gonna have a shot with the doves, or the dude that did Transformers, Michael Bay. He has his
Yes.
little moments, the lens flares. Oh no, that's the other guy. That's the guy that did Star Trek. But there's just certain things about certain creatives that do something that stands out, and to me, that's what his was. He really loved
Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer, John Woo. Yes.
Yeah. So for him, for Itagaki, so he loved the. You can tell he loved the female form, and I'm not talking in a sick, bizarre way. It's
Yeah,
just
not
the way-
in a nasty way. Yeah.
like how you wanted to present it artistically, and of course, to me, that takes the look and the softness of the graphics and stuff, the smoothness of the graphics takes precedent. It'll dictate what the gameplay is, as opposed to Tekken, as opposed to Virtual Fighter.
Right.
Because Tekken and Virtual Fighter are more oriented type games.
So I think that's why on Dreamcast, Dead or Alive looked so gorgeous because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
the console was the Naomi hardware, right? The Naomi board was very heavy on polygons, so the softness was really oversaturated. You can see it how good it looked, right?
Polygons is like the crack of our time.
Oh yeah,
gaming, dude. I remember articles writing about how many polygons this board could push and that board could push. It was such a big deal back then.
yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, the whole stupid P argument that we have nowadays can't hold a candle to.
No, because the P's of the resolution, that's just how clear you can see the image in the game.
Yeah.
The graphics are still there.
Yeah.
It's just how clear you can see the image if it supports higher resolution. But it's not adding graphics. That's not what it's doing.
Right.
Polygons actually is what created a soft edge look. So if a hand would look blocky like it did in the Atari era, right, with the Jaguar, or in the 64, or with the Sega Saturn or the PS1, the fingers would look all blocky. They look like they were put together with tape to make it look like a finger, but it looked like bro blocky, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, but
Polygons turned that into an actual soft curved image in 3D. So
you remember the big thing? You remember the big thing though? The
what
Jaggies?
was it? Fresh my please.
Where everybody would talk about Jaggies. When they would zoom in, it's like, oh, look at the Jaggies on there, and that was the next big thing. Is that we gotta get this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, the Jaggies got rid of that with resolution and with resolution too.
Yeah.
But before that, remember during the 8-bit and 16-bit era, it was the parallax scrolling.
Mm.
That's what made the games have a more dynamic and realistic look and amazing effects, which is the way that the layers in the three-dimensional backdrops moved individually at certain speeds to give you the illusion that you were actually moving in that board level in real time. Because before that, you remember, they would always be drawn in. Like when we had Rygar, it was drawn in.
Yeah,
There was no animation in the back. You moved, but everything was drawn in. And those were the early stages. But when Parallax Trolling came, holy shit, Parallax Trolling became like a godsend. They were like, it made games look incredible. It was a different thing. It was a game changer. The same way like polygons, right? And then we had high definition, and then now we have the 4K resolution. All these things played a part, all of them. And then even, how many bits the boards were running on, because we went away from that as well. Because, I remember the arcades ran at 128 bits. And once we reached that with Dreamcast, and then, that's when they started exploring. You better give me a bump. And me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What did you say about Dreamcast? They started exploring what?
No, with the Dreamcast, when they started to explore, doing you call it. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought.
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Dreamcast version of Dead or Alive 2 looked better than the PlayStation 2 version.
That's what we were talking about before you came in the show.
Yeah.
I said that. I said Soul Calibur, Code Veronica, Ferrari F-150, Dead or Alive, they all still look better than the PlayStation 2 version, even though they came out almost 2 or 3 years later on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And that's how you knew that the Dreamcast was a better piece of hardware. All they would really had to have done was upgrade it to keep up with PlayStation. And they probably would have lasted probably the whole generation or a better half of the generation against PlayStation 2. But
Sony put the whammy on them, dude.
Yeah, phony with that money, man. With that money, they bought everybody out. Money had it, and scared the shit out of developers. Talking about, oh no, you're gonna waste your time putting the game there because they don't have enough memory. Even though they designed the cap on the side to give extended memory, and they never used that. Remember, the Dreamcast had that thing on the side, on the other side, not where the modem was, but on the other side, where it looked like a port where you can slot something in. That was built so that they can add extra power or memory going forward to future-proof it if they needed to. That's what that was there for.
That's why I always say, man, I'm glad Microsoft is loaded. Because Microsoft is trying to do that to Xbox right now. A lot of the stuff, dude, if you guys didn't, I know you guys don't know the history between, among, not us, but somebody who might just come across and see this, dude. A lot of the stuff that Sony's doing right now, like the whole thing coming out about Wukong, me, Sega Man, and Hebot, we don't bat an eye at that stuff.
Nope.
that is Sony 101. Sony's always do this. I always bring this up because I feel like I have to hammer it home. Vaporware, they are the original architects of that term, vaporware. Because one of the things that killed the Dreamcast was they had an announcement. They didn't have nothing. They didn't show nothing.
Yes, they literally showed a paper schematic of the PS2 at that time.
Yes.
That was it.
And that was enough. That was enough to get these losers not buying a Dreamcast, and that's one of the reasons why Dreamcast fell.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, dude. Never. I will
That's
always bring that up.
That's a fact. Oh, as soon as they said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna put a built-in DVD player," that was it. People were more excited about getting a DVD player with the console than anything else. And the funny thing is that most people don't realize they fucking did two things for Dreamcast that even shitted on the PS2 during the Dreamcast while it was still out, which was you were able to buy a connector that you put on the slot on the side that it will allow you to play DVDs on the Dreamcast. That's number one. It was an expansion port, right? They also made a camera where you can have motion and use that motion camera to play with games that they were going to do with motion ability. And they had that Blim disc that came out from that company that you were able to play PlayStation games on Dreamcast, and it made it look better with better, sharper, smoother looking graphics. You were able to play Gran Turismo on Dreamcast, and it looked better than it did on PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 1 or whatever the fuck it was from the PlayStation 1 era. And if you don't believe me, you guys could look it up. That shit was crazy. You were able to play PlayStation 1 games, I think it was, through Blim with Dreamcast and made the games look far superior. that you couldn't even do on the PlayStation 2 when it came out. Because the PlayStation 2, even though it's back compact, it didn't make the games look better. It just you just play the game. That was it.
Ah, what could have been?
Huh?
What could have been?
right,
You know, it's funny. That's why I don't have a problem with people saying Xbox is the Dreamcast 2.
right.
It actually is. It actually is the Dreamcast too.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, if you want to look at it as far as innovation and what they're trying to do every time with a generation, yeah, then you can definitely you can see the correlation for real.
It just
I mean,
feels like it, doesn't it, Hebot and Brother Sega Forever? It felt like it was a Dreamcast too. It did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a part of me that wishes Microsoft would be a little bit more reckless, like Sega was, because that's, you know, look, dude, it's putting yourself out there. It's the risk reward thing. I know that's something that's probably foreign, especially now that Microsoft backs them. But I miss that, dude. I miss that. You wouldn't
Yeah,
have.
but let's be honest, Sega Forever. If Microsoft took the risk, right,
Mhm.
with the quality that they try to do with most of the things that they do, I think the risk would benefit them as opposed to being an actual risk. See what I'm saying?
Well, I think they can, and I know they somewhat do. But because they have the money is not a problem for Sega. It was always living on the edge because of the money, and I'll even go further as to say that the way the Dreamcast was reminds me so much of what Xbox is now, with the Xbox system, with the ecosystem. Because back in the day, man, with Dreamcast, what Dreamcast was an amalgamation of everything that everybody asked for, and some of the greatness of Sega thrown in, and people turned their back on them, and you kind of see that with Xbox right now. And the only saving grace, not the only saving grace, but one of the main reasons why Xbox can continue on is because they have the backing of Microsoft now.
Yeah.
You know, Microsoft is not, I don't care how many of you guys say this and how many times you guys say this to make yourself feel better. Microsoft gaming is a big industry, and Microsoft is not going to walk away from it. There's a reason why the Xbox with Bill Gates, under Bill Gates, got involved with video gaming, and that has not changed.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a company now. You might have had a chance when Xbox was solo, like they were kind of off on their own.
Yeah, you mean when fucking what's his name? Oh my God, that fucking Iron Wolf had interviewed him. Oh my Jesus, what's his name?
Blackley, Seamus Blackley.
Seamus Blackley. You know, there was Seamus Blackley and 3 other of his homies.
Yeah.
And they basically presented the idea, and he said, "Okay, go to the scrapyard where we have all the pieces for PC, and build a console." And did they ever build a console? Shit was crazy.
Yeah.
And remember, there was a point where Bill Gates, just so they can beat Sony, and there's even interviews and everything that prove it, right, that are out there. He was willing, they were thinking about giving the Xbox away for free. When you would go to the store, you just pick one up, and then all you had to do was buy the games because they were going to make the money off the games.
Yeah.
And they never did. I'm like, imagine if they would have done that. I think Sony would have died that generation for real.
Well, I know he mentioned he was cognizant of the fact that that's something Sony might do as well. Was like to just become that box, become a service with the cable companies. I remember they mentioning that. Yeah, go ahead.
Confidence on the OG hardware.
Yeah.
But they knew it was way more powerful than the PS2 in every way, shape, or form. Yeah. You saw the results with Splinter Cell. Splinter Cell blew everybody's fucking mind. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, OG blew our mind with Halo. Listen, Halo was a game changer. But when we saw Splinter Cell for the first time, how the way the satin curtains look and you were able to cut through them with a knife, the graphics, the weather effects, the lighting, the shaders, the way the neon lights look on his suit, the way he moved, the animation, the stealth capability of being able to put a little fucking mirror under the fucking door to see what was on the other side with that espionage take. Splinter Cell blew everybody's mind. I don't care what anybody says. It was like when we saw Ron and the Chronicles of Riddick. That shit blew everybody's fucking mind.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about on the 360. I'm talking about on OG. That's when you knew. And then the fact that their games would run at 1080p or 1080i at that time. At that time. When PlayStation games were all 420p with some progressive scan stuff. Right?
Yeah. I'd like to think that Xbox actually set the seeds for 360 success as well. I know a lot of people ride on just the 360, but I'm like, nah, dude, it was built in the OG days. You have to lay a foundation, and OG.
Absolutely, it was because what everybody saw what they did with the OG when they said this console. When they said this console is going to be way more superior than the OG Xbox, people knew it was real because they saw it with the OG.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing was that when the OG came out, since they were the new kids on the block, right? And they had money, and they were able to buy and pay people off to get things like GTA and Metal Gear on Xbox OG, right?
Yeah.
The developers weren't fucking pussies. They weren't acting scared. They didn't go, oh, no, we got to keep it parity because PlayStation 2 is too big. No. They say, fuck yeah, this is brand new technology, moving and advancing gaming forward in the console space in the level of a PC that we never seen before. So we're going to advance. We're going to fuck that. When you saw Splinter Cell years later on the PS2, that shit looked disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
It was gross. And it was in 30 frames on top of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you saw the Warriors that Rockstar did. Compared to the PS2 one, it looked amazing. It was in 720p, 60 frames, high level density graphics. The PS2 one looked disgusting. The sad part is not many people were involved because Sony had bought out a bunch of people that still had contracts with them. But that's why once 360 came, that's why they went first. Because they're like, you know what, let's build an even more stronger console and start the next generation first. And they started signing all these people. And everybody was signing with them. Because when they saw what they were going to get out, remember when you don't believe me, but you can look this up. When the 360 came out at that time, it was even more powerful than the best video card on computers at that point. It was stronger than a PC. That's why a lot of PC guys jumped in and bought it. Then, obviously, about a year and a half, maybe two later, the PC got back and being the leaders of, graphical fidelity and power and shit like that. But that's why a lot of PC dudes bought 360. Because it was just so much more advanced at the time. It was the most powerful hardware at the time. You know what I mean? And then, obviously, with Gears of War and things like that, that helped it. Because they saw those kids and they were like, what the fuck?
That was a game changer there.
Oh yeah. So again, they built the foundation for everything you see now, but it started with Sega on the Dreamcast. So that's why I said put that respect on the Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast is the first one that started everything. The success of 360 also came from Dreamcast. All of it. Because all those practices and type of approach that they use for 360 stemmed and started from Dreamcast with Microsoft and Sega together.
Hey, brother.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's amazing about the Dreamcast too, and Sega forever knows, and I know you know he bought, was amazing, so different game was called Seaman. They still have that game. That Seaman game where it had Leonard Nimoy as the narrator when you first started the game.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. It was different. It brought something
you were
different.
taking care of a virtual pet, and you can talk to him, and he would talk back.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Depending how you took care of it, he would evolve and grow. If not, he would die.
Yep.
It was very interesting and innovative idea, and you had the little mic that you would connect to the controller.
Right. Back then, that just blew me away. I would come home every day from work and then just talk to the Seaman all fucking night, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy, man. I loved that, man. I still have it. I actually still have the little microphone, all that stuff. I still have it.
Mm-hmm. And it gave you challenges that you had to do too.
Yeah. Yep. You got to make sure you feed him. You got to make sure you clean the tank. All kind of stuff. You can make him mad. He'll be mad if he's in the tank and it's dirty. Like he'll say stuff. It's crazy. It was good. It was awesome. Little virtual pet.
It had like an adaptive behavioral AI in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came with that microphone.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Again, every time I talk about Xbox and them doing peripherals, that's why I do. That's why I do. Because I remember how Sega used to have so much great peripherals that spoke to the type of games that they made.
Yeah, we weren't thinking, oh my God, we talked to this mic, the government is going to record us and hear us. We didn't have that type of stupid mentality.
Yeah.
The amount of people I told them that they were like, my one friend was worried about it. I was like, brother, you're not that important.
You know what's the irony of all that, brothers? That when PlayStation 3 came out, or 4, right? Remember how, the Connect, it's going to spy on us.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers were the ones that were doing actual porno in their fucking house and putting it and streaming it. And doing crazy shit like that. Yeah. No, you have to see the crazy shit they were doing on that shit.
Well, it's open season now. You can get that anywhere. But other thing, jumped in to hit the like button. Have a great show. I have to get up in a few hours. Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks, brother Zink.
Yeah, what's up, Zink?
Yeah, Global Pose here. Thanks, brother. Zobi is still
Zobi.
rocking out with us. Thanks, Zobi. What else? Yeah, dude, we had quite a cast of. The chat was on fire, man. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it, man. We're just strolling on. Oh, we lost Hebot. Well, that's okay. Sega man, dude, we're gonna have to wrap it up because I gotta.
Oh, you gotta go. You gotta go. You gotta go too.
Yeah, I know it's late where you are, man. Was it 11 o'clock?
No, where I'm at, it's 1 a.m.
Oh my gosh, brother. Yeah, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you jumped in. I sent you a link on Saturday, but I knew you was probably.
I missed it, brother. I'm glad I got to come in and talk some Dreamcast and Sega with you because I missed that one. I missed it.
Yeah, Dreamcast, dude. I mean, was there?
Did you have Day on? You have Day on there?
Yeah, dude. You know, I send the links out, but because I'm not consistent, dude. I try to be, I just can't be.
It's okay.
I heard you say that kind of in your podcast today. I'm just saying, dude, you got. I mean, I'm like you, dude. I have stuff I got to get done for work, family.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
You know? So
it's great.
We gotta get where we fit it in. So
it's great to have the Dreamcast. I actually have the Dreamcast hooked up. I might play a little bit tomorrow morning because I got to get a water thing put in. That's gonna cost $1,400. So
yeah, dude, I just did my plumbing, man. It was about $2,000.
Jeez.
Yeah, dude. I was like, bro, that's
expensive.
Yeah, it's funny because he said, if it wasn't, he was honest though. That's why I went with him. Like he told me straight up, and I'm like, look, dude, if I pay, he's like, look, dude, this costs more, but I'm telling you, dude, you can. And he even was like, if things go wrong, you can just hit me up directly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't want because you could pay $1,200. Like there's some people quoting me like above 1,000, a little bit above 1,000, but probably would have come back and the work he did was extensive, dude.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I was trying to fix it. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I didn't even know this, dude. Where your pipe is, there's like a pressure valve or something. Yeah. Some kind of valve that was messed up. And so no matter what I did, because it ended up leaking. I had water damage. So that's why I had to call in like a professional to figure out what's going on. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. But I feel your pain. Any type of pain now is just not wanted. Is not something we need. Any of us.
Yeah, got to get it done before winter. So.
Yeah, true.
So you still got a little bit of time because it's still a little warm down here right now.
Yeah.
Not really cold right now, so still got like another month, I'd say. Like the end of October, it'll probably start getting cold down here.
Yeah, dude.
That's about it, man. But yeah, man, the Sega Dreamcast was just it was an amazing time. I still have the launch book, from Toys R Us. I still have that book.
Oh, nice, brother, nice.
The launch book. They gave you the book before it came out.
Yeah.
To hype you up. I got that. When you go in there and you're like, oh man, look at all these great games. NBA, NFL 2K, Soul Calibur. Like it showed all these games. And I kept looking at that book over and over, being excited and happy for waiting for that Dreamcast, man.
My gosh, dude, those days are so gone. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
miss those days. That's why I was kind of waxing poetic with other people online today. Just
Yeah.
in fact, what I wanted to do today, I just did this on the fly, but I kind of just wanted to go back, and there's just a ton of videos out there. People are pushing more stuff out because
Yeah.
it's the 25th, So I just wanted to go down memory lane and look at stuff, but I figured I'd do a podcast first. Um, but yeah, dude, I mean, you still have your stuff, dude, man. Never get rid of it, brother. I
Unless
did.
I have to. Unless if it's an emergency and I have to let it go, yeah, I'll let it go.
Yeah, I told you
You know
my
what I mean?
situation, so
Yeah, I'll
but
let
I
it. Yeah.
regret it. I regret it to this day, dude. I wish I would have just hung on to it.
Some of that's the what if you get come into a bind too, bro, you have to let it go.
Well, it's because of my marriage, man. You know what I'm saying? So,
Oh yeah, brother. Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, I wish I just would have hit it or just kept it, dude. Because at the end of the day, dude, there's more to it than that. You know what I'm saying? I thought that would
Yeah.
help, and now I don't have anything, right? I mean, and I mean, like when I see like Zobi was saying what he kept,
Yeah.
like you show your videos or you talk about it,
Yeah.
he bought. Um, Dang, Unlimited probably has a bigger Dreamcast collection than I do. I have some like loose video games, just because I had, I bought and rebought and had doubles of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So now my collection is a former shell of itself. It's like a bodybuilder who was like Mr. Olympia 6 times in a row, but now he's like in his 50s and he looks like people wouldn't even figure he was an Olympia. He was a bodybuilder. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel like with my game collection. It's non-existent, dude. And we put a lot of time and energy in our stuff, bro. So that's why I always kudos to you, bro. Never change, man. Hold on to that, man. Be
Man, I tell you,
steadfast.
man, it was fun. It was fun. It was a nice ride. The uh the Dreamcast, and I'm telling you, it put like he what said when we were talking about the beginning of the show. I had both actually Sega Forever. I had Dead or Alive 2
Hmm.
for PlayStation 2, and I
Hmm.
had Dead or Alive 2 for Dreamcast, and I tried them both. And the PlayStation one did look. I'm not gonna lie, it looked okay, it looked good, but it still didn't have the fluidity and the speed of the Dreamcast one when you would fight. The Dreamcast one was faster. This PlayStation 2 one was slower. It was different, a little different, But the Dreamcast one was still it was better. It was just better. It ran better on the Dreamcast.
The sad thing about that Sega, man, what you're saying is that was just an understood. Because back then
Yeah.
we were actual gamers. It was just an
Hmm.
understood, dude. You didn't go to PlayStation to play fighting games, right?
Nope.
Or you did like how you didn't go to PlayStation to play shooters,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying they couldn't have it, but where your bread was buttered, and that's where you stayed, and
Right.
nobody cared. It's just like back in the day, right? There were certain taboo topics nobody talked about. They understood you could do whatever you wanted to do, but it was just a universal understanding, right? Just like I talk about comic books, man. I didn't
Yeah.
like DC. I was a Marvel fanboy, but anytime a question came up, well, who's the greatest superhero? Everybody would say it's Superman,
Yeah.
right? Because that's just the way the world worked. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that's how gaming used to be. But now I don't know I have no idea what gaming. That's why I'm not disagreeing with you about what it say. I agree with him 100%. It's
Yeah.
just not the same Sega. It is not.
No, it's not.
Like
It's not.
I can enjoy what they do. I can enjoy Persona and all that stuff, and that's because I wear multiple hats when I do that, right, Sega man? And I'm a little bit of a Japan file. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm a total weeaboo,
Yeah.
but just like James Earl Jones passing, most people only there's people making comments. Most people only know him from the voice of Mufasa
Oh.
or or certain parts of his career. Where I'm old enough to remember how groundbreaking his career was. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
There's levels. So that's what I guess I'm trying to say. There's levels.
Yeah.
So
I missed all that. I miss all them days, the old days of Sega CD, and I
oh
used to copy them. I used to copy my Sega CDs and play the copies and keep the good ones up.
no, that's
Cause
what
you,
I did at Sega Man. I technically I guess I pirated, but I bought my stuff because we're collectors at the end of the day and we're gamers.
yeah,
But yeah, you're just like me. Just like I used to buy two of everything, two McFarlane figures, two copies of comics,
yeah,
right? Because one was pristine. That's the one you did not touch. You stored that away. Yeah, I understand, bro.
Yeah, we used to do that. You can burn them and play them, and then you can burn them and play them, and then take your original ones and not use them at all.
Well, I used to get burned Dreamcast games. I used to buy all of them. And then I remember my friend, he goes, "Oh, yeah, dude, just burn them. Don't buy them." And I'm like, "No, dude, I buy them too." He goes, "What? That's ridiculous. Why do you do both?" I said, "I play on this one." And then I showed him my collection, dude. And I'm anal like that, Sega Man, too. I do not like both. I don't like bends. I do not like cracks. I've actually bought games because the case was cracked on the one I had. I went and bought another one just to replace the case.
Yeah.
And then I put the disc in a sleeve. That's how hardcore I was, dude. You know, I mean, it is what it is. So, but anything else? Any final thoughts, brother? Go ahead. It's on you. Any final thoughts you want to kick off before we close? Oh, Sega Man, did I lose you? Sega Man, are you there? We might have lost Sega Man, guys. We lost Hebot earlier. I'm pretty sure he would have tried to get in. It is 7 at where I'm at, but it's early in the morning for these guys. Yeah, so Sega Man, bro, thank you for being here. Hebot.
Oh yeah, no problem, brother. No problem, man. Always
Yeah,
support
bro.
you, my Hawaiian brother. Sega forever, man.
Thanks, my brother. And I'll try and
Anytime.
I'll look for you on Sundays. I'll look for the invite and then I'll jump in as well.
All right, bro.
Okay. But yeah, we'll call it an evening, guys. Thank you for being here. Xbox All In channel. We out.